properly.
Awesome.
And we are now recording. So, hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine, actually. It's pretty slow Sunday, so
Same. I'm just
yeah,
chilling.
same here.
Awesome. And so, I was told by Jin, our mutual, that you enjoy writing, or that's the thing that you've been focusing on most recently.
Yes, I mean, writing in general has always been something that I'm like infatuated by. Ever since as a kid and whatever. But um, yeah, I mean, obviously, it may take different forms. I'd say, like when I was younger, I always wanted to make films,
Mm hmm.
but that takes that takes a little bit of an army to muster up and make. So uh, changing and things like that. And one through line is that I always like making comics or drawings. So that's what I'm kind of focusing on now in terms of my artistic endeavors. Because for the most part, it's one guy and maybe a few people to test it out.
Yeah, I had the
Yeah.
same issue where I was like, "Oh man, I'd love to like make these recordings or all these other ideas," and then you start asking all of your friends, and all of your friends have no ambition to do any kind of art whatsoever, and so they're all just like, "That's cool for you. I hope that you have success." It's like, but I can't make anything without you, you know. And so you
Yeah.
get stuck in that loop where you just have to keep thinking downwards. You're like, how can I remove every element of this story that doesn't require me and still tell this story? And then changing mediums, which is kind of what it sounds like you're doing, is one way of doing that.
Yeah, pretty much. Because like I did go to college for film, and this is going to be a pretty uh, funny story in terms of why I you know decided to make that leap. But I had a buddy, and we were kind of like a duo, an artistic duo. We would make a lot of short films,
Mm.
and uh, once we both graduated, obviously he went super duper corporate, and um, I was finding my footing, sorry. And and about a few months ago, I want to say 6 months ago, he proposed that he is okay with the idea because of how hard it is to gather a team for film, at least. That he is okay with using AI for his like films
Hmm.
and his ideas, and that to me immediately uh, gave me like an immediate reflex like reaction, like okay, like I'm not following you on that. I don't want to join you in that path. So that's that's why I decided like very much, yeah, I need to kick into gear on my personal artistic endeavors because to me, I live through it. I don't really know what else I really do day to day if it isn't just making stories and wanting to tell these stories.
Yeah, the way I tried describing to my family before, because I was trying to go down a traditional path, and to be fair, I'm still kind of on a traditional path for work, but I was like, in it's hard to explain because I don't know if you have parents who are really like blue collar workers, because you try telling them like I really want to do this, like this, I don't see my life without this thing, and they're like, well, you can do that, but oh my goodness, my friend is trying to call me. um like, you can do that, but I want you to get like a real job first. And it's like, but this is a real job, this is something that I want to be doing. um and you try and explain to them, you're like, if I don't do this, I'd rather just die. It's like, if I'm not creating something, that I don't think my life is worth living. And that's probably a self-destructive attitude, but at the same time, I feel like it's necessary as a creative to have something of that inside of you. If Do you feel that?
100%. Like all the negatives, I am 100% on your boat. Um, it's weird because even though I said that, oh, very recently I made that choice to, it's not. it's not that I made the choice that I wanted to make a comic so recently. In fact, I wanted to make a comic at the same time Jin did, and so I don't know how many years ago that would be. Uh, 5 maybe. Good lord. Uh, but same thing with him and I. We we kind of stalled and always wanted to perfect our ideas, so they never really got out there.
Yeah.
And last year, in terms of like a headspace, I wasn't all at the best spot, which is where like I did not create anything. I didn't want to do much of anything. You know, everything was kind of like dour and depressing. And again, it was what my friend said that like flicked the switch in me, and I was like, okay, like I do not want to go down that path. I need to forge my own, basically.
So, real quick, going back to the AI, I know that's a
Yeah,
huge concern for a lot of people who are making things, and to an
very
extent,
huge.
and to an extent, I really understand it because it's like, yes, lots of people are going to try and use that in, let me say, lots of corporations. I think the main issue is corporations who are going to have the biggest problem in trying to push down smaller artists because the corporations are designed exclusively for finding the cheapest way to get the best result that the most people will accept. And we can already see majoritively that everyone is essentially accepting AI already. Where if the work is like good enough, um, basically anybody will accept it. And I think you can see that in just the fact that for some reason certain movies are still making money, even though a lot of them are just not good anymore. So on that end, it's like it's a technology and it's a technology of the future, so it's not going away. But I don't want it to be the thing I'm watching all the time. But at the same time, I can also see how people who are smaller can use it to, I guess, like forge a path in helping them be able to create more. I'm not quite sure how or why, but like there's one guy named Skybrows who makes essentially
Mhm.
like meme songs about cultural topics, and he gets like millions of views, and so that's a singular guy making these AI generated songs and videos about these topics. And so it's like whenever I've seen some of them, I'm always like, man, I wish there was like a team of humans behind this. But at the same time, the fact that he's able to make something and get it out there still feels important to me. So it's kind of like, I kind of sit on the edge on where I actually feel about those things and the AI
Yeah,
being used for creative works.
yeah. It's a very like how to say. It's a very complicated issue because, like I said with my friend, he wants to create things, but in 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 that he has to kind of like consider. Oh, he has to get like cast and crew. He has to find shoot days. He has to think about post production, and he decided, okay, I forget all that. There's this tool right now that I can use that can probably get him, you know, with the way that AI is, you could probably get like a similar result, which is a bit like of a harrowing thought.
Mm-hmm.
But for me at least, it's I don't know how to specifically say it because we basically decided to make the same choice of chipping down uh, our resources to where we can tell our stories in where it's like only us are making it, or at least at the minimizing the amount of people. But for me at least, it's I want to also go through the labor of making it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sit down and just ask the computer to make it, and I wait a few minutes and oh, there it is. I don't know. For me, it doesn't come off as satisfying. Maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like the argument you keep seeing that people make for being against AI is like, well, it's missing the soul. And then you try and ask
Yeah,
somebody, what's the soul? And they're like, I have no clue. And it's like, well, it feels like you're just kind of making up an argument to make up an argument. And I thought about that for a while because the other part is like, I want to toil in making it, right? I get that idea too. It's like, unless I've used all of me, my mind and my body, all of it, I would not feel happy about it existing, even if it was something that I wanted to exist and I put enough prompts in that the AI created it. I'd be like, I would personally feel like I cheated. Now, there's a place where I feel like if I could get a prompt and make a storyboard animatic out of an AI, but I wouldn't want that to be the final product. I'd want that to be something that helps me
yeah,
get like investors in the project or something because I'd still want to create it personally. Uh, and
yeah,
that's one of those things where it's like I could see how this could be useful, but at the same time, I could see how a person would create an AI movie, and because they are overall writing the script and doing everything, if their original intention was to create with people, but they couldn't find anybody, and then they made the movie anyways with AI, then they'd be like, well, let me see if I can get investors for it, and then nobody invests. Well, they're like, oh, I'll just post the entire thing on YouTube then, and since it was them doing all the inputs and creating everything, it still has a human element to it, but it's not in total a like complete human interactivity. It's one person using a computer to try and create everything. And so it's like it feels like
yeah.
even in his ability to release it and have it seen and have it connect with people, the artist himself is also missing out on an element of the creative journey that he wanted, which was originally to have other people working with him and to work creatively with others. So like even
Yeah.
if I completed a project like that and people liked it, it still wouldn't be the project I wanted to make because I wanted to spend a year with the same film crew, having problems come up that we had to resolve on the spot because that feels like an actual part of the creative process.
Yes, yeah, pretty much that. I think you take away, how do I say this, the problem solving of it. And obviously I'm not saying that with AI it immediately takes away, any sort of problem solving experience. I know the whole case of being a skillful prompter and all that, but the labor that it takes to making a movie, I think completely eclipses any sort of conundrums you might find, you know, uh getting an AI movie out, in my opinion, or anything really, not just a movie, but like, when it comes to like writing a book or drawing a graphic novel or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Something about that. It's kind of like whenever you find, have you ever had an artist who, made his own graphic novel whenever he was starting out, and then he does a deluxe edition of it where he redoes the art for it? Have you ever seen
Oh
any
yeah, yeah.
artists do that?
There's a couple on my mind. I don't believe. Uh, I don't know why this web series called Unicorn Jelly is coming to mind, because I don't think there was a remaster of it. But
Mm-hmm.
well, I think the popular one is Scott Pilgrim, right? They
Oh
did
yeah,
go
yeah.
back and redo the art for it, if I'm not wrong.
It's a possibility. I think One
Yeah.
Punch Man also did that because one can't
Yes.
draw.
Yeah. Yeah. One
uh,
can't draw. He can write.
he
The
can
dude
write
can
really good.
definitely write. But yeah, drawing was not his his you know
Hey, it was
uh
iconic though.
it really was. And I'm glad they didn't shy away from it in the actual, like, Yosuke Murata manga. Like,
Mm.
his shirt will have the drawing of like one's Saitama, or uh sometimes some characters may be drawn in a crude way that looks very similar to what the original looks like. And it does bring a lot of charm to it, which I think is also one thing to really go at it. It's like, yes, one cannot draw, but it sure as hell is charming.
Yeah, I would almost say it was like, I guess 2 points when I think of one in his works. So he will by himself write and draw his comics.
Yes.
And then afterwards, people who are better at doing art will come and enhance the art, or make it the way that he actually originally had the idea. But he is kind of doing like you're saying you're trying to do, where it's like, regardless of the fact that I would have better success with more people being involved in this, with having a better artist doing everything on the first hand, he is upfronting all of the potential success and failure of all of his stories by doing everything himself. Even though it
Yes.
isn't living up to his ideals internally, he's like, I still have to create it though, and I still have to be the one personally doing the work. So you have that from top to bottom, it's just one in his creations. And I think that endears a lot of people to him whenever they first find him. And that's,
Oh yeah.
again, kind of like what you were saying. It's like, well, how much can I reduce everything else down except for the part that requires me, and how can I make that as good as possible?
Yep. Yeah. And I think one also had that same thing where he's like, he needed his idea of One Punch Man was so good that he needed to get it out there. And obviously, I don't know if this story has really any merit to it, but the idea was that he worked until he could save up just living, unemployed for a whole year just to make One Punch Man.
I've
So
actually known
yeah.
some people to do that with their creative endeavors.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can't this is gonna someone's gonna like really get at me for this, but I think it was like the author of To Kill a Mockingbird also had that similar process,
Um, yes, so that
or was
was.
it? Yeah,
I thought I had that on my shelf right here. It's in the other room. Harper
yeah,
Lee. I have the other book that she did. She
yes,
only
yeah,
she
yeah.
only ever wrote one other book. So with Harper Lee, um, she she had more of a tragic story where the person that was taking care of her actually like wouldn't really let her out. So she kind of created the book um,
Ah,
as a personal escape, because she had a lot of stuff she wanted to say. So
hmm.
she created it kind of out of, I guess, the necessity of maintaining sanity, which I feel like is, an artist. It's like, why are you creating? It's like, well, there are too many voices in my head, and I need them to get out, so that I can hear my own voice
Oh yeah,
again.
yeah,
Would you,
very much so.
yeah. Well, one of the things I talked with Jin about is I told him, I was like, coming up with ideas and stuff. For a lot of people, you hear them say like, "Oh yeah, I came up with the idea of this character," and I always think in my head, I'm like, did I come up with the idea of my characters, or did the characters already exist in some way, shape, or form? And I'm like grabbing that character from the ether and bringing them out of the ether into reality from from my mind. Like perhaps there's like something
Like there's a
something
pool of
other.
like collective consciousness. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a collective consciousness, something like that. I actually very weirdly, with various of my story ideas, have I have a very faint idea of the fact that there is like a human server that, you know, because you would probably like write a character or you'll have an idea of the character and then you'll probably like go watch a movie maybe a few weeks or a month later and all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's exactly what I thought of,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And obviously I don't think many people really live very similar lives to where those kind of ideas collide that close. And I don't mean it in like a very spiritual way, but that, maybe through like so much years of just, you know, like humanity living and creating art and all these ideas culminating in some sort of like, yeah, ethereal human consciousness or server or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I know for what I told Jin, because we went over a similar topic, and I told him I'm actually almost exclusively convinced that there is a spiritual side to reality just because of art. And my thought process for it, and so I'd be interested, because it sounds a little bit like maybe you don't you don't necessarily agree that there's a spiritual side to reality. But I was like, if humanity just had the reference point of everything physical in the world, how could you come up with the idea that there is a spiritual world in the first place?
Yeah,
And
that's always, that's always like a really good question to ask, especially someone who, obviously is just pretty removed from any sort of like spirituality.
yeah, well, even Jin said that he didn't really believe anything necessarily. He's like, I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. And so I
Yeah,
was like, because anything that you can think of, any characters, just like anything, you're like, it's a culmination of almost everything that I've ever experienced. And it's like, but there are certain things that I haven't experienced or that I know other people couldn't have experienced. So how do we still have the ideas for those things? And that's where like the idea of a spirit comes in. It's like, how do I get the idea that there is something out there that is alive that can interact with this world but isn't a part of this world, but I'm still able to interact with it. So how am I able to interact with that other thing? It's like, but if you only have other people to interact with, how can you come up with the idea that there's something interactable that isn't something physical?
yeah. I mean, the only answer is it's pretty much art, isn't it? That you're
Yeah.
kind of like you're telling fiction, basically, a reality that doesn't exist, and in some way making it tangible by making it compelling, or uh, you know, to someone believe that that kind of world is actually real and that they can actually go into it and interact with these characters, and when things happen, they feel it too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I very much see your position on that.
Yeah, but even for like creating alternative worlds, it's kind of like if you were the without potentially another world pre-existing outside of this one, how would you come up with the idea of an alternative world? Because everything that you'd write would essentially be a history at that point,
Yeah,
unless you had potential foreknowledge built into you of the fact that there's more than just this reality. So you're like, oh, if there could be more than just this reality, but how do you get the idea of more reality whenever you only have this reality to go off of?
yeah. That would be like what, um, like the chicken or the egg in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like ideas or something like that.
Yeah,
Like if that thing existed first, then obviously it has existed and it can pop up in your mind. But if it was created because of your thought, then how was it initially brought to your brain?
yeah, and for me, I was like, I think the actual answer for that is that I'm the egg and the chicken did come first, and the chicken created all of this, and so it's like there's a that's how I'm able to have that's how stories exist in the first place is because there is something else first. And so every time I create something, I'm actually calling on the first thing that had all of the ideas and then pulling from
Yeah,
it and trying to bring more of its ideas into reality. So whenever I'm creating a story, it's like I'm actually referencing something beyond everything here, which is how I'm able to come up with the ideas in the first place. Which would be an interesting idea just for the idea of like character creation. How do you come up with characters and stories?
for me, when it comes to doing so, all right. What I find is absolutely like paramount for like not just character creation or just stories in general. I think is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I believe any significant story made by anybody is normally spawned by a question that they probably have. So, like for instance, I don't have much material for it. If anyone wants to see, hopefully by the time this video comes out, I'll have something. But the comic that I want to create, Bonobos, the idea is that um, it's the apocalypse, and you're focusing on one character. His name is Mello, and he just wants to make his comic book before the 2 week deadline that this contest initially had, right? So before the apocalypse had happened, he wanted to he wanted to enter this comic book competition, and it gave him about 2 to 3 weeks to make it. But then the apocalypse happens. So even though all of these things are happening around him, he is still someone that is pretty adamant on delivering that book, you know, before anything else. And that like that story came to me from the question of, yeah, what if we lived in a world that didn't require art? Why would you still slave away so hard for it?
So what
Yeah.
would your
So
answer be for that?
that's also something that I'm trying to get out of it, because and an extension of what I feel like curiosity is so important to storytelling is, I feel like a lot of people will tend to write stories with that question in mind, hoping to find the answer as they make it. And as of right now, I don't have like an absolute answer to it, but whenever I keep thinking about making it and trying to get to that answer, I always realize that maybe the proof is in the pudding, and the idea is that the fact that you're making it is why it's so important to begin with, even in a world that probably never really requires it anymore. Like, people in the apocalypse would probably only be thinking about, how do I ration my food? There's probably no time for leisure. So, like, if I turn on the music, some guy could be attracted to it and like steal my resources or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, even, yeah, regardless of a world that, you know, doesn't require art, the fact that you're making it is proof of its importance, in a way. Not to ramble too long about it, but that is sort of the answer that I have right now. But it's not, obviously, to me, it's like, I believe there's a bigger answer at the end of that tunnel. Maybe not.
So one of the it kind of like there may be an answer, or there may not be an answer. Um, I have an idea that there is like stories can be true or they can be false, and bad
Hmm.
stories are the ones that lie to you, and good stories are the ones that are honest and tell the truth.
Yeah.
Which is why I think stories that have bad endings are not as good as the stories that have good endings, even if the good ending stories can be considered cheesy or something like that. I'm like, well, but
Yep.
life is good at the end of the day, right? Like, there could have been tragedies after tragedy, but at the same time, humanity still keeps going regardless of the tragedy. So there's obviously something greater than the tragedy, which is good because we still want to be here. And
Yeah.
so any story that ends poorly without a glimmer of hope, because a lot of people die never experiencing the thing good afterwards, all the people that experience those tragedies. So, like, for them, the story ended poorly, but overall the story is still good, even though there are tragedies inside of it. So
Oh yeah.
for your story, this idea of creation and everything, do you, while you're creating it, you're trying to be honest? What do you think? What is kind of like your idea of how the story ends, and do you feel that is honest in how the story should end?
Ooh. I think. Oh man. I won't. All right. I have an idea of the ending, but I will relate to that to another story that, to me, basically, how do I say this? Like, bonobos has been this idea that I've had for a long time. Like, I think even Jin would agree that it's been running around this course of constant new concepts and stuff like that. But what really changed bonobos into the direction that it is in my head now, is this little comic called or manga called Girls Last Tour. I don't know if you heard of
Girls
it.
Last Tour? No, I'm
Yeah.
behind on my mangas.
Yeah, yeah. No worries. it's a wonderful little book about it is similar idea. The world is ending, and it has these two girls who were sent on a mission to basically reach this safe point, right? That they were ordered by their grandpa to do, basically, as though the world is being rummaged by war. And because of that, because of their upbringing, they don't really know much about life, like normal modern day life. So they're looking at it in a very retrospective angle. They will wonder why the hell a camera even exists. Like, you're taking a photo, but you can see well with your eyes. And then at the end of that chapter, there'll be something that gives a very like nice glint, um, to understanding the importance of a camera. Or they'll go to like a church, and to them, like a church is just a building, right? It doesn't hold any more importance as it does any other building. But when they go in, they still feel this kind of, you know, this kind of atmosphere, and so on and so forth. The ending of that book uh, is basically after chapter after chapter of them basically going through each day, living life and learning about it. Uh, it's a very bittersweet ending, and I don't know if mine would be as bittersweet. But they run out of rations. They reach their destination, and there's nothing really there for them. It really just is like the end of the world, and all they do is just pop out their blanket and say, "We'll figure this out tomorrow," and then the book ends. And it's like the probably the most human thing that could, you know, to end that book, after them like learning constantly of why do humans do this, why do humans do that, to do the most human thing ever of just think about it tomorrow.
I will have to check that out. Is it a manga or is it an online comic?
It's a manga. It's, I think, about 5 volumes. It's a
Oh
pretty
dang.
short one, actually. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it's a very, very, you know calm look, like retrospective look at modern life. And yeah, when I read that book, it really did change my entire perspective of what I wanted bonobos to be. You know, in a weird way, the evolution of bonobos went from like this high octane action, like it's like in the same way, it's like, oh, these artists, the end of the world, they can basically live out their lives, their like wildest dreams, like action heroes. And I got less interested in that idea. And then when I read that book, I was immediately like, yes, it's that, basically. Like, I want to explore what art is, and I try and explore it in a world that may not need it anymore.
Would there ever be a world that doesn't need art, or is there only a world or a time where the purpose of art can get lost and confused for a little bit?
It's that is, I think they're dragged back into like what you talked about with, like, there's this ethereal like school that you can pick out from. Uh, it's probably like completely tied to sentience as well. I think a good reason why a lot of people do make art is when they're bored, and I think our great great ancestors probably felt the same way. you know. And I mean, you look at like what old cave paintings, and that's
Mm-hmm.
also like an expression of art. So that concept has pretty much been symbiotic to like humans, like maybe since our inception. And will there be a world without it? I think a world without art is a world without humans.
Yeah.
I'd say
So
that.
so art and humanity are essentially fundamentally connected into their origin or necessity of life almost.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like humans, just like you need food, you must have art of some kind to make you want to live.
Definitely. I think even in the most tamest of forms, I think it's there. Um, I mean, you can look at you look at some cultures that, for the most part, they probably, I won't say condemn art, but they definitely forbid it. There's still a lot of what art is within that culture. It's just that they look at it in a very different way.
First thing that comes to my mind is the Soviet era, because at its
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
inception, they tried removing art entirely, but they
Yep,
had the problem of people becoming way more Western under their regime because the only
yep,
art that existed was being smuggled in from the West. So they really quickly had
yeah,
to backtrack on hindering all artistic efforts, and instead were like, hey, we're now subsidizing Soviet propaganda. And so they
yeah,
ended up having a really competitive culture for art during the Cold War, because they were like, oh no, we're losing. We're losing
yeah.
our own civilization that we're trying to bring about, because people were like, I need something to hold on to like give me purpose and drive and to like make me feel connected and want to continue living, which is something that they couldn't provide originally, which created, very interestingly, a lot of really excellent animations and also very fantastic films, because I've watched some of them before. The Soviet era artwork is a really interesting path
Really,
to go
I
down.
haven't delved into it myself,
Yeah, so
but I should
they
check it out.
essentially, if you look at animation during the Cold War era, you had like three contenders for people who were actually making really good animations, and that was Disney and the West overall. And then you had like China and the Soviets. And the Soviets, it took them a little bit to get started, but once they realized that everybody was smuggling in all of like Disney and Western art and animation, they were like, oh, we have to have our own. So they started hiring loads of people to start creating. And so you've got, since they had to create it all Soviet and Russian origins, you have a lot of their fairy tales being turned into movies, and so
Oh
you
yeah,
get these really extravagant films talking about old folk tales and fairy tales that were from created by Russians early on. And so even though it was the Soviets and they were like, "There's no God, it's just reality," you do the work or you don't get anything. Their actual art that they were producing at the time is very fantastical, because that's what people needed. They needed something that was outside of the reality that they were living in, since the reality they were living in was so bleak.
oh yeah, yeah. I think that's a wonderful like example. Actually, I mean, I haven't 100% checked into it yet. I'm still very, I mean, I'm still a little juvenile in that sense. I only look at like French animation or Western animation or even like Chinese or Japanese Western, like Chinese and Japanese animation as well. Looked to I haven't looked in Russia's direction, but that is a very, very interesting description of it actually.
Yeah, I would say for anybody who's like looking into art, if you feel like you've got a gap or something, I'd be like, don't worry that you've got a gap, because you've got the things that you're interested in, and so long as you're finding good things there, you're you're
Yeah,
satisfying that need for art. But probably for you and for me as well, it's like I like seeing as much as I can, because I like experiencing everything. Like what was it like over there? And then you find so many things that are similar, but you also find even more things that are the same. And so you're like, oh,
oh
okay, it's
yeah,
like I'm connected to these people while not being connected to these people at the exact same time.
yeah, pretty much. And I had the same mentality, like in my teen years and in my early 20s, and I got a bit of a burnout like early 20s, and I like it crashed by like media consumption because it's very weird because I believe at this like you should always be creating, but at the same time you should also be like taking in various like pieces of media, and then taking what works and then putting that into your creation. But because I spent like my teen years just watching things nonstop, like after a while I was just very, very like burnt out by it, and only recently have I just started picking like stuff back up again. But like obviously during those years where I was burnt out, I was still creating a bunch, but I could definitely tell there was definitely a creative slump, you know.
I mean, creative slumps hit all of us. I think my first major slump for creativity. It's kind of awkward because whenever I was growing up, I was doing sports and stuff, but I was way more watching and ingesting loads of media. There's a channel that comes on. It's called TCM, Turner Classic Movies, and so it just plays movies from silent films all the way up through like the 80s. And so I was
Oh
like
yeah.
always on that channel, just watching the history of old Hollywood to essentially new Hollywood, all the time. I was watching so much on that channel, uh, and like not even really understanding why I liked them so much, But I was still watching all of it, and then I was watching like every single animation that I could. And every time I found out that there was some other thing, I always got upset whenever I couldn't watch it. Uh, and so you'd like try and borrow everything from everybody. You'd be like, "Hey, what's this thing right here?" And they just have people tell you all about the stuff that they're watching too. Whenever it's like, "Oh yeah, I watched this movie," and you're like, "I've never heard of this movie. What was that movie like?" And then even probably like literature class, you've probably had literature classes. Where did you find that you were just way
Yeah.
more invested in the literature classes than everybody else?
100%. And it's
Yeah.
not just that, but like I think in a weird way, you were more interested, but it was also a lot more effortless than the other classes.
Yes.
Would you say that? Yeah. And I think it's because you're probably more attentive to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I remember it used to you know, uh, piss my classmates off because they'll be like, "How the hell are you reaching such high marks and all that?" And I'd be like, "I just read it, dude."
Yeah. Okay. This always frustrated me because I it's like the classes where I felt I should have been getting the best grades are the ones where I got the worst grades, and the ones that I felt I should be getting the worst grades in were the ones I got the best grades in. So, specifically for literature and English, because I just innately had such a stronger passion for it, I would never I would never write my essays or do the work like as written. I would always do it more creatively because I was like, if I'm just writing this in MLS format as though it's a research paper, I just
Yeah.
kill me now, right? I was like, so I'd always add personality to it, and so I'd always get like the lowest grades, even though I had the most well written and grammatically correct papers. And I'd be like, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, it's not what I wanted. And you're like, it doesn't matter that it's what you want. It satisfies every criteria you place down, and it's also the most enjoyable to read. Because everybody in the class would always be like, man, your stuff was always more exciting to read. But I'd get lower grades than them at the end of the day because I wasn't like doing it right. And I always hated that because I was like, you should be supporting my passion, not grading me for not falling in line with everybody else.
Oh man, school. They're never beating those allegations of, you know, not supporting you know, actual ambition.
Yeah, I had one excellent literature teacher, and she's the one that got me into Shakespeare and a lot of other classic American literature. She's also where I found Mark Twain, who's probably my favorite writer outside of Victor Hugo. Well, I might like him more than Victor Hugo actually. I'm not really sure, but I remember what she would do in our classes is she'd get a Shakespeare play, and she would have us during one semester read as a class the entire Shakespeare play, and each of us had a role, and we would keep
Wow.
that one role the whole time. And so you had some people who had more personality, and whenever they got to it, they'd create some really crazy voice out there, and then you'd have somebody else who's like, I don't want to be here, and so it'd be the coldest read it'd be like
Yeah.
Hamlet, and he's like, to be or not to be, right? And somebody else is over here playing Ophelia and just throwing their heart out. So it just made it more fun because everybody would laugh at the crazy differences of people's
Yeah.
performances and how they were connecting with the story. So she did a great job at making me passionate because that's the number one thing. Like if I could just be a teacher and I could just make people passionate about things, that I'd feel like I'd actually done my job rather than whatever else they're normally grading by.
Yeah, I think that's also whether a lot of artists want to do it or not. I think that's also much an ambition of theirs too, to inspire other people to pick up a pen and try and do something for themselves as well, like try to say something.
Mm-hmm. What do you have? So your story is very much an idea on I want to have a story about a person who's creating art, even though art isn't necessary and it won't make him food or anything like that.
Yeah,
Which is trying. In a sense, it's trying to inspire people to be like, hey, don't worry about what you can or can't get out of it. Create it anyways. So just like with your story, what do you think specifically, if you have a specific thing, or just generally you want to convey to other artists to come across it?
I think that again, obviously I'm relating back to Jin because he's like my artist buddy here, right? Like I always talk to him about all these sort of things, and I think he believes that there's suffering through art, and I'm kind of a person that is, you know, I'm on the opposite end where I'm like, you make art despite suffering, if you know what I mean.
Could
And
you
I
actually
think,
explain the difference between those two?
yeah, so I think some people, you might find some writers who will be like, I need to be in a horrible headspace to be able to get like good ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that that's never the case. Obviously, some people might be in such a slum that all of a sudden this little spark pops in. But I also feel like at the same time, because I also went through a bit of a mental episode myself. Uh, that during those times, I just didn't want to create. More or less, I didn't want to get out of my bed. And what I realized when getting out of it is that art isn't the byproduct of suffering, it is the antithesis of it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah,
Keep going. Just say whatever's
yeah,
coming into your mind about how to
yeah.
explain it.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously, uh that's the best way I can get it out in like a short way. I think the long way is that like uh, you might find someone also like, okay, maybe an amateur writer might immediately think, oh, uh an amateur writer might go, oh, they'll probably read something like, I don't know, Berserk or something like that, and immediately go, oh, my character has to suffer in order for that character to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
People will only like that character if they suffer. And it's like, no, no, no. It is the fact that they keep going forward despite the
Yes.
suffering that makes them good. And I think that goes back to what you said about how like bad stories lie to you, or bad endings are not truthful to real life. It's because, look, no matter how bad life gets, there's always going to be a sunrise at the beginning of the day to kind of you know get you moving.
Would you? So, do you know the Lord of the Rings? I'm assuming.
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay. So there is in the books. It's not in the movies.
Mhm.
But one moment that's shared between the books and the movies. I'll go over that one first. Whenever they're going through the land where the king's field used to be, or with all the king statues, and the king's head is on the ground. It's you see all this great king that was supposed to be a good man, and his head's decapitated on the statue, but on the ground where it's been since Sauron took over, it's growing in the place where the crown was. It's growing flowers, and Sam comments on it,
Yeah,
and he's like, it's kind of crazy that even though the king's decapitated and it looks like we've lost this area, that there's still beauty here, and
Yeah.
that even though it's controlled by the worst evil that there could be, somehow goodness is breaking through. Like it can't suppress it at the end of the day. And in the book, a part that's not in the movie, but it stuck. It's essentially that same kind of idea, but it stuck with me more. Is there's a moment where Frodo is sleeping on Sam's lap, and Sam is just like, "What are we doing here? This is while they're traveling to Mount Doom inside of Mordor
Yeah.
itself." And he's like, "There's no hope. Why are we here?" And he looks up at the sky, and the clouds part for a little bit, and he sees stars. And he just like sits there for a moment, and he's like, "You know, no matter how terribly things seem and how blind you are to what's beyond, there are still stars up there. There's still beauty and goodness beyond what I have the capacity to actually see at any given time."
Yeah.
And so it's like that idea. And I think that's one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings, especially over here, I don't really know worldwide how popular it is, but over here it's considered one of the greatest uh, trilogies of movies and books ever made.
Yeah. You'll find a lot of people having that sentiment on my side of the earth. Same as Jin's as well. You know,
Okay, good.
a lot of people. My personal favorite will still be Back to the Future, but
People really like that, but that's another one that's it's just really fun. I think this is actually, I'm gonna go to this question that I wrote down earlier. Um, what do you think connects people to stories? Because I've seen an argument a lot of times online where I'm like, people be like, I really like this story or I really like this movie or book, and I was like, I hated that. You know, and so that person, but have you ever done that where you're like, that's absolute trash, you should read this or watch this instead because it's
Ad-
that but better?
admittedly, all the time.
Yeah, I do it all the time, and my friends get
Yeah.
so annoyed. Like random people get annoyed too, and they'll get like mad at you too. Have you ever had people get mad at you
Oh,
whenever you're like, "Oh, that's really
I
bad"?
I remember. I mean, very simple story. I remember premiere night of Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Uh huh.
Uh, Obviously, theater was ecstatic, and then everyone left, and they were electric. And then it came time, hey, Michael, what do you think? And I said, not that good.
Yes.
I
So I
Yeah,
had.
well, weirdly
Sorry,
enough,
finish.
I had just like a very weird. I was like, I liked Peter Parker's story, but I didn't like everything else that surrounded it, you know, and that just led into, weirdly enough, they don't hate you where they like throw spears at you. They are like negotiating or trying to get you on their side. Very weirdly,
Hmm.
they'll
So,
try to tell you. Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
oh, uh, so I had the exact same experience because whenever I was watching the movie, I was so hyped for every single moment. I'm like, that movie has some of the greatest moments in film ever. I was like, but it's a bad film. You know, it's like
Yeah,
seeing Toby Maguire stop stop the other Peter from killing Green Goblin because he's like, if you do
yeah,
this, you're gonna become something that you don't want to be. And whenever Andrew Garfield saves Zendaya, and he just starts breaking
yeah,
down,
yeah.
tearing up, and crying, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this moment is so good. And then on the drive home with my friends from having seen that movie, I was like, everybody was like, that movie was so good, it's amazing. I can't believe they actually like da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I thought it was had like amazing moments, but I also had issues with, and the entire car just went, don't say anything. We
Yeah.
just want to enjoy the film. If you start talking, we're all gonna start hating the movie. And I was like, okay, fine. So yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I've had friends be like, not invite me to something artistic or like a movie because they know that I'm gonna ruin it for them afterwards.
Really.
Yeah, so I've had that happen before. They're like, tell us what you thought after you watch it by yourself. We want to enjoy the entire experience for like a weekend without you. It's like, okay.
I think I think I should be expecting that for the new one coming out next month. You know. they're gonna be happy with it. I'm probably gonna go watch it on my own.
Yeah, it's like y'all can
Yeah.
talk to me afterwards if you want your day ruined. Um, but the question at the core of that was there are like two levels where I noticed that people connect with films. There's the personal level, and then there's the actual like structural level of it being a well written story. So no matter how bad a film is, there is a person out there for who it would connect to on a personal level. So it's like even though it is actually a bad film, they will still love it because it relates to them in such a unique way.
Yes.
But like the great films, the great stories that we still remember are those films that capture that personal level but also have a good structure to them. And so whenever I try and tell people, I'm like yeah, you personally like the film or the story, but it's not a good story. And if it was good, you'd actually like that story even more. So you need to like boycott anything that's not as good as it can be because you're allowing people to make worse things.
Yes. Yeah. It's. I mean, obviously, uh, obviously, like sometimes you might want to be snobbish and take the critical side of a film.
Mm-hmm.
I am very much. I'm very much victim to loving to do that. This film, the shot composition is not up to par or something like that. But I am very, very, very much aware. At least I try to be of other people's like reasonings as to why they would like a film or even love it. You know, to some of them, it's a very personal thing. Like, you know, some guy, I don't know if they would, but some guy might actually like look at one of the newer films that come out, which, I'm not going to kick all their shins, but they're not as they're not turning my like head to go see them. But some guy might go see it just because there's actual like a personal connection to it or something like that. Who knows? Some guy out there might have a dad that really liked uh, the Mandalorian or something like that, and really just wants to see it as sort of a fulfillment to it. And for that I won't rag on them, but you can't pay me to watch that film.
Yep. I feel that I have most of my friends are what I just call normies, where they're just like the reason they go to see a film. Well, there's the reason they say they go to see the film. There's a reason you actually go to see a film. The reason they say they want to go see a film is because they just they thought it looked interesting or they just wanted something to do for a little bit, right? But the reason you actually go to see a film is to be essentially like transformed or radicalized uh, into a relationship with other people who have seen that film, or the people who created it, which is how I think about it. The thing that made me kind of realize this was the the director Frank Capra, who's my personal favorite director for films. Um, he was complaining about film critics in his day getting like personal screenings of it that they'd go and watch at their house, and he's like, I don't make movies for people to go watch alone in their houses. I make movies so that you will go to the theater and you watch it with everyone else in that theater, and you'll know walking out of that theater that you got to experience something with other people, you know
Yeah.
because he kind of realized that deeper level of why we have stories in the first place, where it's like this is to connect us all together. um and I feel like that's just completely lost nowadays in stories.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Very weirdly, I think like that is also a phenomenon with comedies. Like people will go to theaters and absolutely love a comedy, but then when they watch it by themselves, for some reason, it's just not as funny anymore. And I think it's that
Mm-hmm.
shared experience that kind of elevates that kind of your experience with a certain thing. At least on an entertainment value, on an artistic value, you could still look at something, uh, and still go, well, I know the theater was going crazy over it, but it still wasn't, all that.
Yeah, that just like Spider-Man No Way Home. That was the exact
Pretty much,
experience I
yeah.
had.
I
It
had
was like, yeah, sorry, go.
so I had my friends like punching me in the shoulder just at how hyped they were when uh like Daredevil came in and all that. They were
Mm-hmm.
absolutely ecstatic. And for me, I was sitting down and I was how to say I was waiting for that moment for me at least where I would jump up and go, oh yeah, yeah, like start clapping. Uh, but again, you know I think they were focusing on that too much that they forgot that I think for someone like me, at least for me, it's like you need a bit more substance to get me, really out of my seat.
What this is what I started trying to do. I started trying to just be caught up in the experience of seeing a movie with my friends or with other people in the theater, and then in retrospect think about it. Which is terrible to have to
Oh
do
yeah,
nowadays because it's like I want to know why people like it so much, and then I want to know if it was actually good. But I also want to be able to
yeah,
enjoy it the moment of, which is where you have to kind of like turn your brain off. And I hate that I have to do that nowadays to enjoy most stories. But it's really nice because it's like we've actually been getting some pretty decent movies coming out again. Like Project Hail Mary is the most recent one,
oh yes, yeah.
where it's like, oh dang, this is just a good sci-fi movie in today's day and
Yeah.
age. What?
This economy.
Yeah, this economy, because
Yeah.
it, and that's another one where it's just hopeful the whole way through, and you don't realize it as
Yeah.
you're watching it. It's like, oh, he's by here alone. He runs into an alien, and then the more of his backstory you get, you're like feeling a little hopeful, and then you see how he actually gets chosen and set on the spaceship at the exact highest point of his triumph in all of this, and it's like it like I don't really know how to describe it. I loved the way that it told the story because it made you feel like, yeah, you know what? Even though I too feel like a failure, I actually have done good things, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important story, especially like nowadays, because everyone seems so depressed. And I think that's because we don't have good stories coming out right now.
Yeah. It again, like I think that's pretty much a byproduct of it. I think you have no good stories, you don't inspire people. People then get a little bit, you know, a little mellowed out, and the circulation of art then becomes a little, dour. Well, I
Mm.
won't say dour. What's the word? But like deteriorating or something like that. Yeah, pretty much. So I think it's why maybe for some people at least it's that's still maybe a big reason why we want to create stuff. And like yeah, you talked about your favorite directors. Actually, funny enough, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the people that did make Project Hail Mary, they're actually my favorite directors.
They've
And I
done
know
some really good
they
stuff.
yeah very good stuff as well. And I mean I've been following them since I was like what like super duper young. Like what Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then the Lego Movie was obviously the big catalyst for
Mm-hmm.
um, it was a big catalyst, at least for me and many other kids, to be like, hey, yeah, you can tell stories out of your Legos. Go do that. And yeah, and then they moved forward with their other projects. It's been a bit rocky this decade for them, not gonna lie, but they're just, they still got it.
It's been rocky for everybody. It seems like I you could go all the way down the culture war rabbit hole. But this is why I'm almost kind of glad that Hollywood's failing because it's like, well, now it's forcing people who are smaller creators like us to actually step up, and it's also
Yeah,
pushing people who wouldn't be looking for smaller creatives to be looking for them now because it's like, where's all the good stuff? It can't be that people just forgot how to tell stories, and it's like no, but everyone at the top forgot. And so now you have to look at the
yeah,
bottom again because that's where all these people who used to be good storytellers existed. And so it's like something at the top is telling them they can't make good stories anymore. But the people who aren't at the top, they get to tell the story that they want. And that's where the idea, of like stripping away every aspect that doesn't require just you to create, um, I think allows for a lot of people to connect on a more personal level with a lot of creatives now. Because I'll just use Jin's story since we've both seen it. His story right there. It's really small. It's really simple. It has a very creative world that makes you go like, okay, this seems like a fully realized world, and I kind of want to know more about it. But inside of all of that, you can tell it was primarily just like one person's intense vision for a short story, and whenever you watch it, you're a part of that. You're a part of that story.
Yeah.
You're a part of that world. So you actually feel really connected to the creator of it and to the people who worked on that project. And to the point, I reached out to Jen and I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you about the story?" And then the more I talked to him, the more I realized we had like such a long history of similar, um, like media diets, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay, so this is why I connected to you, because you and me both enjoy the same things, even though we've never met. And I like recognized maybe like your influences or the things that you enjoy in story being in here too.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I think that's also what, yeah, like what you wanted to go back on, and the question of what connects people to stories. And I think it's one thing to really enjoy a story and really love it, but it's another thing to have someone else to share that kind of experience with. And I mean, for me, like the longest time, I've been trying to recommend Jin, Near Automata,
He mentioned
because
that to me actually.
really, okay, cool, good. He stole my swagger. No, I'm joking, but but for me, like I played that game when I was like, you know, mid-teens, and like it absolutely changed the way I looked at how you can tell narrative art. It was because it was a game, it didn't how to say it? It didn't shy away from the fact that you can really just interact with the story that could either make or break it. And it
Mm-hmm.
became so compelling because of it. There's like moments where, like in a boss fight, you'll be fighting a boss that, her whole idea is that she wants to be looked at, she wants to be beautiful, and a part of the boss fight is that the camera will look away from her as she's trying to ask you to look at her, almost as if the game itself is denying that kind of, you know, satisfaction for that character. Or later in the story, there'll be genuinely like, gut wrenching dilemmas that you have to choose. Uh, like I said, that'll either make or break the narrative. Uh, and then all like it just culminates in this fourth wall breaking like moment. And but yeah, like I tried recommending to him. He played it finally a couple of years back, and since then we've shared that, you know, that admiration for something that I believe, well, for me, it's like my favorite thing ever. So yeah,
That's that's what a good story can do. It can just like change and open up your imagination and ideas, and
yeah,
also
it
allow
was
you to
pretty
connect with
influential
somebody.
in storytelling.
I have
Yeah.
a game right now that I got one of my friends to play because I have you heard of the Plague Tale series? There's Innocence and
Yes.
Requiem.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever played them?
The most recent one, Innocence, right? Or
Requiem is the
was
most
it
recent one, or Innocence is the first one.
oh, Innocence is the first one. What year did it come out? Because I think I played it somewhere in the
It's a
late
good
2010s,
question.
I think, I believe. Yeah.
It came out a while
Because
ago. They're
I
fixing to
played,
release
yeah.
the next
Yeah.
one. So that was one I
Yeah.
played the first one and I was like really surprised by it. And I thought it was great and I was connected to it. And then I played Requiem, and having played them like one after the other because I got both of the games together in a bundle.
Yeah.
Um, Whenever I got to the end of the story, I was crying. I was like, dang, I got so invested in these characters, and for the story to end the way that it ends, it's just like, wow. but you got it. You got why the characters did what they did at the very end of the story, and I finally have one of my friends now playing it, and he's one of the more normie guys. He went to go see Star Wars Mandalorian and Grogu, and he was like, "That was like the best Star Wars we've had in years." And I was like, "If that's the best Star Wars we've had in years, it's
The
really a
only
sign
Star
of
Wars
how
we
low
have.
Star Wars got." I tell people I left the theater for The Force Awakens and immediately said I'm not watching any more Disney Star Wars, which I ended up watching Rogue One, and I would watch Andor, but I don't have a way to watch it at the current moment. Um,
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I was just I watched the thing that got me where it made me go, oh, Disney doesn't know what the heck they're doing for The Force Awakens. Whenever they were doing a bombing run and they were using X-wings as bombers, I was like,
yeah.
nobody at Disney knows any of the lore whatsoever. Because first of all, at this point in
It's the
time,
Y
there'd be
wings.
something better than an X-wing, and there'd be something better than a
Yeah,
B-wing, which would be the actual bombing unit at that point. But at the very least, they should have
yeah.
at least had a Y-wing because of the nostalgia factor, you know. Um, and I was just like, and I'm like, but that's such basic nerd lore for Star Wars that if you can't even get that right, you don't even care about the story. And then aside from that, the story was just trash. I hated the whole thing because I was
Yeah.
like, where's literally any of the characters that I like? Where's like what did you do to Han Solo? He's a
Yeah.
deadbeat. How come the rebels are losing to an empire again whenever they're literally the empire at this point? You know, it's like, how did you lose the plot on the first one that hard? And yeah, it's just horrendous start to the point where I was like, I'm done. No thanks. I'm out of here. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm getting him to play Plague Tale now, and I'm really hoping that he enjoys the story because nobody else I know has ever played the game, and so I'm just over here being like, man, I experienced an amazing story, an amazing gameplay, and it's just me in my
Mhm.
life. I'm the only one who knows about it. I'm just like, ah, and he hasn't finished it yet, and it bothers the heck out of me. I'm actually still trying to figure out whenever it released. That's what I'm looking down here for. I don't know if it
Yeah.
listed on the Steam page. 2019 is when it released.
2019. I think that was the one I played because I remember it was very critically acclaimed, at least in my
Mm-hmm.
circle. So that's what I decided. Yeah, I'll pick that up. I think that was also hot off the heels of the Senua,
Senua
the Senua
Sacrifice.
games. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
which I haven't
So I
played
was
any
like,
of the
yeah.
Senua games. I'm
I
behind. I
played the
played.
first one.
Yep.
Yeah, I played the first one. I haven't played the second one.
Yeah. Supposedly the second one didn't do very good. I heard that the first one's kind of like a cult classic, and the second one kind of dropped the ball. Is what I
Pretty
heard.
much. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, the second one, I think it just, you know, released way too late for anyone to really grab at it. I think everyone kind of moved on from like Senua, or at
Mm-hmm.
least the people that did have already like moved on to other things. So yeah,
Yeah. Um. The So I wanted to go back to Berserk. You know how you were saying like it's a very
yeah,
dark story, but the point of the story is that this one guy can go through so much and still keep going.
hmm
But you were also talking about how you think people get lost in the fact that they think, oh, because my character suffered a lot, um, that's what makes him interesting, and not, no, it's because he keeps going even though he's suffering a lot. In the way that he doesn't like let those sufferings hold him back from continuing to move forward. The other thought I can think of is the opposite idea, which he had since we were talking about Star Wars with Rey, where everybody kept calling her Mary Sue because
yeah,
she never dealt with anything. She just won every single encounter, and so you were just kind of like, well, where's the conflict? Like, what are we doing here at this point? Why haven't
pretty
you just
much.
killed Kylo Ren, even though you don't even know how to hold a sword? You know,
Yeah,
uh, to the point where they get separated, and it's not to save her; it's to save Kylo Ren, right? And you're just
yeah,
like plot twist. There's plot armor for the villain.
yeah.
um, so for character building and making characters relatable, what do you think people get, and what do you think people get wrong? Like get right and wrong versus it.
I think it's like I said before. Like some writers, when they pick up something like a Berserk or something like, even something a little lesser than it, they immediately, because they've never seen a story that such a character in such a, you know, like dire situation, they immediately think, oh, it's that. That's, you know, I need to put my characters to so much like pain and torment, and it almost becomes like you're becoming like a cynical god at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But they do miss the point of like, it's not it's not the events that makes the character, it's how they react to it, how they, you know, take that next step. Like for instance, like, you know, what you said, like with the Force Awakens, what they basically did was regress all the old characters to square one, which in its own already will not call for a very satisfying, you know, turn like a satisfying thing. And the newer characters, because they're now back at square zero well, not back, but they're at square zero with the old characters, and they don't have any sort of moment of conflict or real uh you know, like, yeah, like real obstacles to go through. You kind of just, realistically, they've kind of just sat in like square zero for the entirety of the trilogy, you know.
Well, to the point where some of them regressed. You had John Boyega, who was like, "You're a stormtrooper. Oh, you might have like force powers. Oh, and you're
Yeah,
like, you deprogrammed yourself whenever they explicitly have this like conditioning program. Like, oh, that's a really interesting setup. And then they regress his character past the point that they started him at, to where he becomes less interesting than the first movie with each progressive
yeah,
film. And you're like, how did you do that? How did you get such a strong premise and then make it nothing? Even inside of the Force
pretty
Awakens,
much.
whenever they were like, how did you get all these access codes and how do you know all these things? And he was like, I was a janitor. It was like, then how did you fight on the front lines? Like, what was the first opening shot with you shooting at people, or refusing to shoot at people, which was another part of his character that the movie immediately threw out, where he's like,
Yeah,
he's been indoctrinated to murder everyone, and yet he can't get himself to pull the trigger on anyone. Like,
yeah,
that's a really cool concept. It's like, how, like, there's something so innate and deep inside of the core of his being that he can't kill anyone, even though it's the only thing he's been raised to do. Because as he said, they took me whenever I was a child,
yeah.
and it's like, that's such a cool concept. And then for the rest of the film, he's shooting all of the other people that he would have potentially known personally, and knows what they went through. He knows that they don't actually have a personality of their own. They have had their livelihood stolen, and he's like, blast, blast, blast. It's like, what are you doing?
Pretty
You know,
much.
it's,
They don't even explore his, like, you know, inner, yeah, like inner conflict with all that. Like, you know, you've been on both sides. I, you know, weirdly enough, like the Last Jedi tried with that. You know, there was like a scene where one character was telling Finn, like, you know, yeah, you change sides, but realistically, like, look at the manufacturers of an X-wing compared to a TIE fighter. They're the same thing. Like, they come from the same people. Like, you know, this war is not really about sides. It's about, you know, money and whatever. And then they just forget about that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you could have made that, because I think people forget a lot with the Star Wars movies. Um, the, not to be confused. So the Star Wars movies are political, but they're not political in the real world politics. They're political in the sense that inside of
Yes,
their own universe, they're covering the morality of what's going on in that universe. You know,
pretty much.
uh,
Yeah,
but because they're covering the morality of in that universe, it actually, what it's covering covers not only modern politics and things that are going on, it would actually cover all politics at all times throughout all of history, because they're the exact same questions over again. Um, which is why Star Wars is a universal property, even though they're really doing their best to destroy it. Because you have the original trilogy, which is much more camp, Flash Gordon, just fun sci-fi. But you're dealing with a lot of
yeah,
ideas of like, what's the Force? Nobody knows about it. Anybody who knows about it says, like it's a dangerous thing, don't deal with it. And then you have some guy who's like, no, it's actually a good thing, and it's more powerful than anything that you can do on your own. And then it culminates with all of their technology, all the power that they've got. What ends up giving them the victory? The victory comes through the power of the Force, which is guiding them and leading them to the good ending of this universe, right? Because the Force
Yeah.
wants good, and the problem is that the Empire is using the Force in an evil manner. And then you go to the prequel trilogy, and so it's a lot less camp, it's a lot less fantasy, even though it's more fantasy in some regards. Uh, but it's more politics, and the politics
Yeah.
are it's like you can tell that you almost had an incredible space opera in here, but there just weren't enough people telling him no to certain ideas he
Oh
had,
yeah.
because the original trilogy had some really incredible heavy hitters, all helping him the whole way down. Like that generation of
Oh yeah.
filmmakers were all friends, and they would hand each other their scripts. And he had Irving Kershner be the director for The Empire Strikes Back. It's like, well, no wonder
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back is so good. You got Irving Kershner directing everything, right? Um, and in the prequel trilogy, you have them dealing with all these really important questions where it's like the first movie of the trilogy is, well, we're a republic and we have to do everything above board, and this planet is like, hey, we're under siege and we don't have a way to like get resources anymore. Our planet's going to starve and die because you won't do anything. And so you have this like rotted democracy that is so stagnant it can't recognize an evil thing, nor can it send help. Which is
Yeah.
also very relevant. People would be like, oh, if it was made today, they'd be like, oh, it's commenting on yada yada. And it's like, well, it's actually a problem throughout all of history that people have been under
Pretty
siege
much.
and seeking help and can't get help from people who can and should help. When it's obviously apparent to everybody who's the aggressor and who's the non-aggressor. Uh, but it's told in such a way that it doesn't really connect with a lot of people anymore. But the people who get it, it's that kind of like structure versus emotions. Especially for people like our generation who remember all those movies well, it captured our emotions very strongly. But their structure wasn't as good as the original trilogy, even though it's technically better in a lot of other ways.
Yeah. I mean, I know like for like you said with the original trilogy, like yeah, Lucas had a lot of help. I mean, Irvin Kershner was his idol, if I remember correctly, right? Because I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
saw
So
that in the
Irving Kershner was
documentary as a
his
kid.
teacher at film school, and
Ah,
Kershner was one of the people who was like, I don't understand the idea, but you've got an idea, so you should like pursue it. And then he made episode 4, and after he saw what episode 4 looked like, he was like, okay, cool. I'll actually help you on episode 5 now. And that was how
yeah,
he got him to do the directing for episode 5.
yeah, and then yeah, when it came to like the prequels, obviously that infamous clip of him saying, I went too far in a few places."
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't have somebody there, like in collaboration at least, somebody there to say, "Hey, maybe this idea is not exactly like what what you think it is," you know, obviously you didn't end up getting something like the prequel trilogy.
But the thing is that it's one of those things where it's like I will still go back and watch all 3 of those films. I know a lot of people complain about 2, but I actually still really like Attack of the Clones. Um, because there's something deeper to them that connects to me and connects to a lot of people, that it's like that soul element. So even though it actually suffers in a lot of places because of the lack of pushback he got, so he kind of just got to make whatever and didn't have anybody be like that's a bad idea. Um, but he's still so fundamentally connected with the core of what makes stories good, and with that universe living inside of him, that you're still connected to him on that same level.
Yeah,
So it makes it,
weirdly enough,
yeah.
yeah, weirdly enough, like I think as time went on, like even episode 3 now has like a pretty good cult following, right?
Episode 3 is
Like,
in a lot of it's more Gen Z and Gen Alpha that are saying they actually
Yeah.
prefer episode 3 over 4, 5, and 6.
Hmm.
And so for me, I'm like episode 5, then 4, then I'd put 6, and then I'd probably put 3, 1, 2. Um, actually, I feel like the Phantom Menace gets a bad rap. I think it might be.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I remember. I myself have a very controversial order, but it's nothing like that where it's like, oh, I put three above. I think I actually put, even though those were the films I saw the most growing up, the prequel trilogy, I actually still do put them lower than the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember I did have like a very controversial like ranking. I can't remember it for the life of me right now, but and I think it's for the best because if anybody hears that, I'm pretty sure there's a target on my back.
Well, so long as the original trilogy is at the top, the majority of Star Wars fans will still respect you.
Pretty much, yeah. Thankfully,
All the ones that matter.
yeah.
So, um, I know we were talking about like we talked a little bit about what makes characters good, the Mary Sue versus the punishment. Whenever you're coming up with your story and with your characters, or whenever you're writing, I think is a better way of putting it. Because
Yeah.
I've written some stuff before as well. And do you have those moments where you have an idea for the story and you're writing that story out and you have where you want the story to go and what you want the characters to do, but as you're writing it you actually hit that point where you want them to do something and you have to stop because you're like, this isn't what they do, or this isn't what the resolution would actually lead to.
Hmm. Ooh. Um. I think yeah, plenty of times you would go like, okay, this is a bit out of character for one of like for any of the characters really. Uh, but obviously, for me at least, that takes a reread to get into and then go, okay, actually, what is this? Um, because I remember actually like again, good lord, like I think 5 years ago when I made the first draft for Bonobos, it was like a burst of ideas, and I think I literally wrote like nearly like 40 to 50 chapters in like a month of what
That's
I
a
wanted.
lot.
It's a lot, and you would find a very focused story. I would believe in it. Oh, the thing is, also that draft is like unrecognizable to what I wanted to say.
That's
So
first drafts, that's what they're for.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think there were moments where those kind of things happen, and obviously it's like a hard dilemma because it's like you want that scene, you want that thing to happen, but at the same time it's like these characters wouldn't do such a thing, so how do you remedy that, you know
Mm-hmm.
and you can't excuse it as like a, oh, this is a lapse in judgment for the character. People just say that's lazy writing. Your characters need to be not necessarily always consistent, but have a believable throughout in the story. How would you remedy that? I think obviously a second draft or a better idea comes in. But if
Mm-hmm.
you want that scene and still have that character not do the thing, it's a very hard conundrum to be in.
Yeah, whenever I
Yeah.
come up to those issues, like you said, it's either time to redraft, but a lot of times whenever you're writing, you can get to those spots, and if you have the mentality of, well, I'll just redraft, it's like that doesn't really work all the time though, because you might need the momentum of progressing past that point to even finish a first draft, you know?
Yep.
Um so for me, I guess the ways I get around it initially is I will just skip that scene and continue writing the story as I intended, or I will I'll let my characters derail where I wanted the book to go. Right? It's like I had all these plans, but the characters would not do this, and so the story is actually a different story than the one I started off trying to tell. And so you just have to go the way that the characters want. But I think it's an interesting conundrum because it's like I'm the author, I have a story, I know where I want this to go, but as you're writing it, as I just said, it's like the characters wouldn't do this. The characters would not make this choice. So it's like I am the author. I can have the characters do whatever I want, but it's like the characters have a will of their own that I have been recording. So it's less. It feels less in the writing process like I'm creating a story, but whenever I'm thinking about it appropriately, it's like I am a third party to their universe, and I'm actually
Yeah,
recording the history of what they've already done.
yeah, pretty much. I, I I just figured out like well, I didn't figure out, but I just remembered there was actually like a specific moment like that. When it does come out, at least for like chapter one of Bonobos, there was going to be a scene where uh, they were rummaging through some stuff, and then a soldier will actually pop up and actually point his gun towards the main character Nello. And the first time I wrote it in a way that like Nello was this witty guy that talked his way out of it, and I was like, that's not him. Like he's not a like he's not gonna whip up a snappy line that's gonna you know charisma his way out of a gunpoint. So weirdly enough, when a redraft, and it's not just a redraft, but I went back through the first page and you know decided to from a blank page rewrite the first page again with that scene in mind to like change. So I was changing a bunch of stuff except for that bit and see how I can recontextualize it or rechange it to where that scene is better. And what I ended up having was it's still a comedic moment where Nello will just say like, "Hey, I have a very important mission," and the soldier will say, "What is it?" And he'll take out the flyer that is like the competition, and he says like, "I have to finish my comic book." And like that moment in itself is like so bizarre to the soldier that he's just like, okay, that's not worth my time.
But whenever
So
you
in return,
redraft
yeah.
it,
So yeah.
oh, so go ahead and finish your
No, no,
story.
yeah. Yeah, just very simply put, like in return, like doing that, not only did it make that scene work, it actually made the story a bit better to like it better in as a result.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I this is my curiosity for it. Whenever you
Yeah.
got to that point, were you like, did you think, oh, I'm not a good enough writer, or did you feel like you were looking at you were remembering the scene wrong, and whenever you went to the redraft, it was like, oh, now I actually see what he was actually doing there. Kind of going back to the recording this universe's history versus being an author writing characters. How did it feel whenever you hit that point and figured out the solution?
It was instead of those two being a choice, I think they were actually weirdly enough, it was the process. At first, I'd be like, "Oh man, I didn't get this right." Like, man, I'm not that good of a writer. But then going back and rewriting it, and then finding the solution, obviously, then you're probably going, "Okay, things are working out." Those This is exactly how that um, how it would go in that world, basically. Uh, so weirdly enough, it's like those choices are actually the process, if you know what I mean. At first, you would think that, you know, at first you think that you're just writing something, and then it almost becomes like a recording of history, or vice versa. Depends on the
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's kind of the point. And I'm just trying to find like other people and trying to figure out how they see their stories as they're writing, because yeah, you get to that point where you're like, because you recognize that the character wouldn't do this even though you wanted to write it a certain way, you know? And that's a
Yeah,
really weird thing to experience because you're like, I have full control. There's nothing stopping me from doing it this way. But if I write it this way, I'm lying about what actually happened here. And it's like, well, how can it be lying if I'm the one who literally gets to choose everything about the story? It's like, well, it's because there's in something else out there that determines whether or not this moment is a lie or it's the truth. And in your redraft, you found the truth. And so you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a person recording history now. And so I came across information and this looks suspicious to me. And now I found the
Yeah.
correct information and I've recorded the history of what happened here correctly this time. So that's like the
Yeah.
headspace I'm in whenever I try and write now. It's not I'm creating characters, it's this is history that's happened and I need to make sure that I'm the greatest historian for this story who will ever live because I'm the only person who knows about this story.
Yeah. I think, uh, controversial as he is, Neil Gaiman, I think he goes in the same way, where he said that if you if you can write a newspaper article about your character, you've written a strong character.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you read a newspaper article, like as if you're a journalist in that world, um, writing about that character in universe, then you've written not only a good character, but also a pretty believable world, I'd say.
I think that's a good way of doing it, or considering that you have written a good character if you can write a newspaper article about him. Yeah,
Yeah.
because newspaper articles are supposed to be what's actually happening. So that would again go into the like I'm recording the history of what actually occurred.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like the same thing with like Alan Moore, and weirdly enough, every other comic writer of Constantine, they would always in interviews talk about Constantine as if he's an actual person they've met and consulted uh, for the story.
well, he can break the fourth wall, so maybe he did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
It's like
they'll
whenever
always.
whenever
It's
you're going
funny.
to go write the actual Constantine story next, just DC puts you in a room, and they're like, just sit in this room for 10 minutes, and you're like, why? And they're like, don't worry about it. And then Constantine hops out of the comic book at the center of the table, and it's like, all right, let's get this straight. This is the story you're gonna
Yeah,
tell. This is what I'm like. Don't mess this up. And hops back into the comic. It's
it's the
like
same thing.
Inkheart.
It's like, yeah. It's also like, I don't know if you read this book from Grant Morrison, but Multiversity.
I have heard of it. I've not ever gotten my hands on it.
Yeah, yeah. Again, typical like Grant Morrison fashion. He loves. Uh, Speaking of which, it's like when I talked about Near Automata and it like changing the way that I perceive how you can tell narrative, or at least break the fundamental rules of narrative art to tell your story. People like Grant Morrison, and especially that I don't even know the comic Concrete.
Uh, I think is it spelled with the K? I might be
Yes.
thinking of something else. Concrete. Okay, so I've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Concrete.
Then
Yeah.
I'm like, for some reason, I
Yeah.
feel like I could see the cover image, but I don't know anything about
Yeah.
it.
And like, um, I mean, obviously, like with Grant Morrison, he loves just stretching the potential of what you can tell with stories, and especially with a book like Concrete. He didn't write Concrete, but uh, you're just like kind of floored with the potential of comic books as well. Which is why, personally, for me, I would love to, write in a comic book format. Is because I feel like it has the most malleable potential to really change things. You know, it's weird. It's like you're limited to a page. You're limited to like 20 pages maybe per chapter, but the actual potential that you can use with those chapters are like forever expanding. There's no one way. Like you might read like Watchmen, and it's like a 3 by 3 panel layout, and then you can read like oh god, what issue was it? It was Action Comics 784, I think, Stuart Immonen. Uh, I might get the number wrong, uh, which hurts. I'm like a huge Superman nerd, but in that book, it's like it goes from page one, which is like one panel,
Mm.
and then Superman goes to a story that's like, like time is breaking, and it will like split. Like, okay, page two is 2 panels, and then page three is 4 panels, and then you reach up until like the second to last page, and it's like 120 panels in one page,
That's cool.
basically dealing with, yeah, it's really, really cool. And then the last page is like back to one, as if like time has, gone back together. But it's like such a relief after like going through all those little panels. And I
Just
love
getting a
comic books for that.
magnifying glass out, looking at each one.
Pretty much, because it's like, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of cheating because there'll be like, you can obviously tell that it's like one panel for like a specific segment, but they'll
Mm-hmm.
just break it up to like 9 panels just to
Like
like
the
keep
broken glass
the,
effect.
yeah, pretty much, yeah, which I think they used for Last Sun as well when Superman was in Phantom Zone.
Superman. Hang on, I got some here you might want to see.
Yep.
Superman for all
Oh, Tim
seasons.
Sale. Yeah,
Yeah,
Tim Sale.
I got like through 20 pages of it, but it's got clamshell case and everything. I was so ecstatic
Oh,
when
that's
I
sweet.
could get this. I need to finish reading it. Superman is an interesting character. He's one of my favorite superheroes. He like started
Yeah.
off as like top 5, and the older I got, the higher he rose in the rankings because I was like,
Yes.
Batman's the best. And it's like the older I get, the more I'm like, but Superman low key's kind of like amazing. And then I meet people who are like, Superman's lame, and I'm like, how could you say that? Superman's amazing, you know? And then they'll be like, well, he can like punch all of his problems away, and I'm like, you've never read a Superman comic, have you? You know, punching
Yeah.
things isn't how he solves them. It's kind of the fact that oops. It's almost like the fact that because he can punch things and solve the problem that way, that punching becomes almost like the inappropriate solution for everything. You know?
Yeah. But
So
that's not really the case with Superman. At least when you're a Superman fan, you know that's not the case, though. Like,
yes.
I mean, at least the way that I explain it to people is like Superman is not fighting villains. The villains could embody what he's actually facing, which is basically like ideas for like, or like morality, mortality, like, ethics. These are the things that like Superman is facing because he's really the only character that could face these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why Superman and Batman are so interesting. It's like for Superman, people are like, oh, he's boring because he could win every fight, and it's like, well, he's not fighting anyone ever really. It's like there are certain times where it's like, oh, he could die, um, but that's not the thing you're concerned about because like obviously he's going to win in the end. The question is whether or not his ideals are the reason he wins, right? And for
Yeah.
like Batman, you could also say like, oh, well, his are mental battles. It's like, yeah, but his are mental battles, but he's also a physical being. So his battle is more of can he himself overcome what's in front of him with his ideals versus Superman's kind of the opposite direction where it's like he can't be stopped. So whenever he's solving a problem, he has to solve it with ideals or he's doing it incorrectly. There's like no failure
That's
state
true.
for him except for losing the philosophical battle of like why is this good
Yeah.
and why is this bad.
Yeah.
I think
Like,
that's why. Sorry, go. You're probably fixing
yeah.
to reference
No,
it.
go ahead.
Similar
Yeah.
comic.
Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow with,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
with Zispitler. Yeah. Yeah. That was very much a philosophical battle.
The
So,
I know the entire story of it, but I haven't been able to actually personally read it yet. But another one,
mhm.
oh dang it, which as soon as I was fixing to reference it, it slipped out of my mind. Oh, now
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm gonna pivot to my other idea, where talking about Superman. One of the interesting things about him is people keep trying to make like an evil Superman, over and over again because it's so tiring. But the other idea for Superman, but sorry, trying to slow my brain down. People don't like the evil Superman idea whenever it's specifically Superman because everybody wants Superman to be the happy hero who's doing the right thing for the right reason. Um,
Yeah.
in the stories where you have like an evil Superman, but that are still good and people love them a lot, are like Red Sun, where he's raised by Soviets. It's like he is the villain
Yeah.
of the story, but he as a character is so innately wanting to do good that even
Yes,
though
yeah,
he's the villain starting out, he actually ends up becoming the good guy in the end, anyways, regardless of all that he's taught, because he, as a person, regardless of the universe he's in, is innately good.
yeah,
You know, and that's one of the things that makes him so interesting and endearing as a comic book character. And I think you can tell me if you agree with this. I think the reason people don't like Superman comics or just Superman, it's one, either they've never read a good Superman story, or two, they're secretly on the side of the villain in all of the stories. I think people who hate
yeah.
Superman are genuinely the exact same people who would make all the same decisions as Lex Luthor.
You're not wrong. I'm gonna say that. You're
Yeah,
not wrong.
I'm just like, every time I meet somebody who's like, man, Superman's boring. He just gets to punch everything, and then like I have to put all this
Yeah.
work in and all this stuff, and I'm just like, you don't get Superman.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
I'm suddenly questioning so many life choices that you've made. Like every single time one of those people starts talking about how they're having a bad day, I'm thinking it's because you're approaching the world like Lex Luthor.
Yeah. It's
You're
like
like,
they'll read All Star, and they'll be like, "Man, Superman was such a bad person for not giving Lex Luthor the serum, the Superman serum." It's like he explained it like right after why that's not a good idea, or why Lex Luthor had it in him the entire time to help.
yes,
Anyways,
that was such a great moment where Lex Luthor literally has everything now, right? And then
yeah,
he stops it, and he just asks Lex Luthor. He's like, I'm actually going to die now. He's like, I will actually be dead in just like a few short days. Why? Why, when you had the potential to be the single greatest person who's ever lived, did you spend the entire existence you had just not being a good person? And
yeah,
then Lex Luthor is at the point where he's like, Superman is dead. Like, the purpose I gave myself doesn't exist anymore. And he's like, dang, you're right. I just chose to be a terrible person. Like, there's no reason for me to live this way. I could have been a good person, and I could have gotten all the praise and all the love that I said I wanted the entire time. And I could have been remembered better than you because I was a human being who achieved for the same kind of greatness that you just seem to innately have.
yeah.
And so it's just like,
Again, again, it's why I mean, for me, like growing up, it was like obviously like Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, right?
mm-hmm,
My dad would show me the Christopher Reeve films, and he would say
so
like,
good.
you know, yeah. He's like Terrence Stamp as Zod is the greatest performance ever, behind Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
And obviously, I had so much adoration for it, but weirdly enough, I remember it was Man of Steel. It came out like exactly like on my birthday, and I said, okay, that's where I plant. Like this is where I plant my flag. He's gonna be my favorite superhero now. And then since then, it was my journey of actually understanding the character. And there's a book called American Alien. Uh, Superman American Alien is a very, I think it's the best entry book for anybody that wants to get into Superman, because it's not high sci-fi, Superman versus the ideals. It is literally just, this is Clark Kent. How was he like at 5 stages of his life, from child to early 20s, right? How was his first conversation with Lex Luthor was, and it's like, oh, his first conversation with Lex Luthor was when he was interviewing him as Clark Kent, and
Mm-hmm.
then later in that story, he interviews him at, like, sorry, not interviews, but confronts him as Superman, and it's like a reverse of what the situation was, and it's very, very. It was a very good book, written by a lesser good man. Let's just say that. A lot of, but, and I will say this: I remember, weirdly enough, when the book was canceled because obviously things got out of the writer. Some things. I was bummed out that the sequel wasn't getting made, But then he went on YouTube, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I do
No.
recommend you read American Alien, and then you watch his YouTube video. I am kind of happy. No, sorry, not kind of. I am very happy the sequel was never made.
Well, it's the same thing for the Dark Knight, right? So it's like we got
Yes,
the first
yeah,
one, everybody's like, it's amazing, and then he keeps going, and everybody's like, stop.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
It's so weird that authors can have that happen. Like, why do you think authors suddenly just like forget what they did in the first place?
I I think it's pretty much the trap of falling into because you might have that spark for like an idea, right? Like an idea, a question, like I said, and you just like burst onto the scene with this like story, and normally it'll be like the first quarter, and then it's time to actually write the rest of that story. And I think a lot of people may overestimate their ability to continue that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, for what he planned for the sequel, it was like you were making all the wrong choices.
Yeah. Well, did you the Joker movie? Uh, do you know about
Oh
that
my,
in the
yeah,
sequel?
yeah, yeah. It was it was the
So
first film I ever audibly, well, the second one I've
yeah,
ever audibly said like "f off" at the ending.
yeah.
It was, yeah,
So it's weird, right? Because some people seem to have incredible talent but not know why people like their stories. So for the first movie, everybody connected with Arthur because they were like, "Oh, I relate to that fact that nobody seems to get me and it feels like life just wants to push me down and I too wish I could go a little mad." Right?
yeah,
Um but the guy saw people's reaction to it and he's like, "No, no, no, no. Arthur is the villain of the story. You aren't supposed to relate to him." Right? Like he wrote the first movie thinking that people would understand that Arthur was a bad person the entire time, but everybody who watched it recognized like, "Oh, Arthur's like the furthest version of me that there could be." Like if
yeah.
I had everything go wrong and I had the power and I could, flip the system, would I flip the system? And it's like, yeah, I would flip the system. That's kind of like what I want to do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Um, and so he wrote the sequel explicitly to try and double down and tell everybody. He's like, no, no, no. Arthur is the bad guy. You're supposed to not like him. You're supposed to hate him. But everybody liked him in the first place. So he doesn't even know why people like the character because he's so disconnected from everybody else. So he's got all the skill and talent in the world, but he actually doesn't have, I guess, like the heart to understand why people understood it and got it. So whenever he tries to actually, on purpose, tell a story with a specific goal in mind, he ends up blowing it up because he's not allowing whatever was the essence inside of him that allowed him to create the first movie to actually guide him. So he starts creating a sequel that's a lie, whenever the first one was just him telling the truth of this character's story.
Yeah. I think one big reason for that too is that if you don't want people to root for the character, and again, it's the same thing where it's like, don't make his reason for continuing despite his suffering justified.
Yes.
It's like in the
Um,
film, it's like, oh, the mental health institution is not getting funded enough. He can't get enough help. You know, he has this horrible family drama, you know, and his work life just sucks. And it's all these kind of things where people can find justifications in and then relate to him or at least sympathize with him.
mhm. So
Yeah.
another story where I thought it was so funny, whenever it came out. So the Barbie movie. I went to go
Oh,
see that
yeah.
because I had a friend who wanted to do Barbenheimer, and I was like, sure, why not?
Hmm.
I just like seeing movies anyways. Um, and how Ken became the most popular character. Like everybody thought Ken was amazing, and everybody was just kind of like meh about Barbie existing at all inside of the Barbie movie. And I thought it was so funny because the lady who wrote the film, she can make good films. But she is a hardcore feminist. She like actively doesn't like men. She thinks men are actually
Yeah.
like the problem with the world. And so she, whenever she wrote Barbie, explicitly was trying to make a movie where she was like, oh, men have to deal with what women have been dealing with their entire life. And so regardless of your actual belief on or agreement with her, the thing is that if she's like, this is what women have gone through their entire lives, and so it's like an uphill battle for Ken to get anything done, right?
Yeah.
And so you if the story is to try and make women seem so powerful for overcoming all the odds to get to the place that they're at, even though an entire half of the human race is trying to hold them back, whenever you make the other half of the human race, whenever you invert the roles, you just make him the compelling one because he's the one that has to overcome all odds to get anywhere.
Pretty much.
And so it was like you completely. I laughed so hard at that movie, but not for any of the reasons that she wanted the movie to make an impact. I laughed because every time she made a statement of why this thing was occurring or why this moment was happening in the film, the next moment literally disproved the previous statement. Right? So he's like, oh, in this world, I'm a man, so I just get literally everything I want. I don't have to work at all. And then he goes, and you see him get rejected for everything that he wants because even though he's a man, he actually can't do whatever he wants. He has to arrive at that place from merit. So he actually has to work to get anything, even in our universe where men get whatever they want just because they feel like it. And so it's like, well, if you're making the movie about how there's the patriarchy and the patriarchy allows anybody to do anything at all times, he could actually go to anybody in our universe and get anything that he wants. But instead he comes to our universe and ends up having the exact same amount of status he had in Barbie Land because he's done nothing with his life. And so after he realizes that he has to work to get somewhere in life, he goes back to Barbie Land and is just like, hey, let's work. And then not only are the women in Barbie Land happy and the men, the world is better and functions more properly. Like everyone in Barbie Land is now happy whenever explicitly only the Barbies were happy and all of the Kens were always wanting the Barbies' attention. But now both of them are happy. And then Barbie has to go back into Barbie Land and resegregate Barbie Land and make all the Kens miserable again. But on top of that, all of the women are also miserable again because they realized that they were happier having the Kens integrated into society. So she then also makes the antithesis argument of what she was originally trying to state, which was like, we need to be equals or we need to flip the system and have the women at the top because then it would be better. But she has it to where the man goes into the system already controlled by women and it gets better when a man is in control. And then whenever women get control again, everyone's more miserable. So she's actively making a movie where the statement piece at the very end of the film is that a matriarchy is worse than a patriarchy. And so I was laughing so hard at the film because she doesn't even know. You watch the interviews with her and she's like, why are y'all saying this? She literally can't get it because she's so blinded. But there's something inside of her that's able to tell a story to that level, you know? And I've not seen some of her other movies because I've heard that Lady Bird is really good. But, she's a feminist, and Lady Bird is a film about a mother-daughter relationship. Yeah, it's a coming-of-age story. So I could totally see how a feminist could write an incredible coming-of-age story between two women. And she also did the Little Women movie, and I also haven't seen that one. I've seen almost every other version of the Little Women that exists. And that one's apparently really good. It's like, but again, you have a story almost exclusively about a group of women who have to overcome incredibly, horrendous odds against the world and also remain a family. So I could see, again, how a feminist would be able to tell a really compelling story about that. But whenever she gets the chance to tell, a man and woman story, she can't get past her hatred of men to actually be honest about what the story needs and should be.
Yeah,
But
I think
whenever
it's
she's
a really
just
good
focusing on the women, she
example.
can do that. You know,
Yeah, yeah, it's a really good example of the was it Death of the Author?
death of the author. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much where like people take a very, very different uh look into your story, and for good or for worse, and you can't really do anything about it. That is already the perception of that film.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I personally haven't seen Barbie. I mean, I've saw the Heimer half of Barbenheimer, but
This it's not necessary to see because it's okay
yeah,
if you the movie is incredibly well crafted, like the sets,
yeah,
the colors, the costumes, all of that is really good, which is really frustrating that it and again I also like I said I was laughing at it the whole time, but it's because I could see what she was trying to do and laughing at the fact that she was failing to tell that story. um
yeah,
but it's not like a good film. It has really excellently made parts of what could have been a good film. My friend gave the
yeah.
perfect description of it because I after I watched it, I was like, I'm making all of my friends watch this because they are not gonna believe what this movie actually is. And I made some of my friends watch it, and the best review I got was, "It is the movie of all time." And I was like, "That's a perfect description of this film. It is the movie of all time because there's so like character wise and story element wise, it's lacking in so many departments. But if you can get yourself on the same wavelength as the absolutely over the top elements that there are, you can still enjoy it because it's still so bizarre and it's still very colorful and well made in every other regard. Like the production design on it is really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing from the trailers and all that. I just never got around to actually seeing it because I think at that point it was 2024, right?
Yeah.
It was yeah, it was pretty busy for me, so I only had time to again only see one half of the Barbenheimer like hype.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I exclusively I was not originally going to go see it. It was just because I had a friend who was like, no, 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 we're doing Barbenheimer because I want to be part of the meme. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it. But the I can't remember what her name is, but she's making the new Narnia film, and I am not excited for that whatsoever. Because I've read. So I have you ever read the Narnia books?
I have not read the Narnia books. I've watched the films growing up,
Yeah.
but it's kind of in that bubble. So I can remember things, uh, but because I've been so far removed from it, I don't believe. Yeah, like it'll be muzzled basically my memory.
That's totally fine. I did not
Yeah.
read or watch the movies until last year, actually. So
Oh yeah.
I had never come across them before. And I'm really glad that I had no childhood memory of the stories whatsoever. Because whenever I was reading the
Hmm.
books, so when I'm pretty upfront. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I like stories because that's I think actually, whenever I'm writing a story, I am creating something that God did not create himself because he wanted me to create it, right? It's like this is
Yeah.
a part of him that he wants me to continue revealing of himself. Um, and C.S. Lewis, being one of the great Christian authors, he
Hmm.
wrote it. The going back to it and reading his story again, or for the first time as an adult, I was like on the exact same page with almost every single book that he read or that he wrote. And I
Yeah.
was legitimately like crying throughout multiple sections of different books
Wow.
because I was
Really?
like, I get this. I get this on such a deep level. The very opening of the first book is to his niece, I think is who it was. Um, and he wrote in it, he said, I'm sorry I didn't finish this earlier because it's a fairy tale, and you won't be able to understand it yet. But at some point, you're going to be old enough where you'll be able to read it again and understand what I'm trying to say inside of this. And you read
Yeah.
that opening, and then you read the story, uh, and I was like,
It's the
I so get
yeah
it. I so get what he was trying to write now.
yeah yeah. It was the 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 death and rebirth of Christ, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes. So in the first one, it's
Yeah.
a fairy tale version of the Christ sacrifice. Aslan is, at the very last book, it still doesn't explicitly say it, but Aslan
Mhm.
transforms into Jesus in heaven. Is what
Yeah.
happens at the very end of the last book, even though it cuts off right before that actually occurs. But this is another universe that God created, and Aslan. If you read The Magician's Nephew, it's the creation of that universe, so you get to see him create Narnia. And
Yeah.
personally, I would start by reading The Magician's Nephew, but some people say to read that second to last before the final battle because that's actually the release order. Um,
Hmm.
but I like The Magician's Nephew first because I don't feel like it ruins anything in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Uh, and whenever you get to the last battle where characters from The Magician's Nephew are referenced, it feels like a closed loop to the story. So personally, I think The Magician's
Yeah.
Nephew should be read first because whenever those characters come back at the end, it's not you're reading the origin story and now you're reading the very end of the story and you just left the
Oh
story with
yeah.
these characters. Instead, it's you get to see how everything starts, then you get to actually go through the Chronicles of Narnia up to the end, and after the Chronicles of Narnia are over, you get to see the characters that you started it with. And you're like, oh, I remember
Yeah.
you, is how it made me feel whenever I saw them in the last book, rather than I read it just before reading the last book. So I feel like that would feel a little awkward story wise.
Hmm. But that's it.
Um,
Yeah, interesting that you can find your own order for those kind of things. I mean, that's obviously the way that people have talked about, like again, like what, like Star Wars, like watch orders or stuff like that.
yeah, I think that's funny whenever people suggest different watch orders for Star Wars. They're like, if you watch it in this way, the story actually works better.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what was it called? The machete order.
Yeah, the machete order, where it's like four,
Yeah. Yeah.
five, 1, 2, 3, 6. But he actually suggests skipping one because he's like, oh, there's so many problems with one, and I'm just like, I like one. There's so many good moments from
Yeah.
one. Like everybody's complaint is Jar Jar Binks, and I was like, I actually don't have that big of an issue with Jar Jar Binks. I know a lot of people are
Yeah.
completely turned off by him, but I'm like, but if you aren't turned off by him, everything else in the story actually works really well. And then you'd miss out on the duels of Fates and Darth Maul and stuff, and like you can't miss out on that.
Yeah.
Whenever I meet people who don't have close families, I'm always like, oh, but if you knew what it was like to have like 12 cousins come over for a family gathering.
Oh, dude, it's like I mean, at least for me, when it comes to like my cousins, they're all like pretty young, like
Mm-hmm.
actual like 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And like what I realized, especially like when I talk about like curiosity and stories as well, is like don't just have curiosity, have like a child's curiosity as well.
Yes.
Because a child, people be like, oh, child, like children will always ask like the weirdest questions. It comes out of nowhere. It's like it doesn't come out of nowhere. They don't know much of anything, and they are like step by step trying to fill up their index,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they will get uh to those questions that they'll ask you and make you go what. uh and I think in the same way with stories, you have to like, you also, not to say like take your damn time with your story, but it's the curiosity aspect of just look around the ideas that you have, and you might come up with a premise that is like really interesting from that. So yeah.
One thing that I always hate hearing are people saying that like children's stories aren't like real stories or they don't matter as much. And I just like,
Yeah.
I feel the total opposite. I'm like, if you're writing a story and you can't present it to a child, I feel like you've written a bad story or just a less universal story.
Yeah.
And I would think of a movie like The Iron Giant. Have you ever seen that before?
Oh yes, love it.
Okay, yeah, one of the best movies ever. And it's like I could show this to a child up through a person on their deathbed. It is something that is relevant to everybody. You know,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and a lot of people will think that stories for children don't need to be good just because children are easily distracted. And it's like, no, you need the stories for children to be the best stories because
Yes,
they have the most to gain from a good story.
exactly. Yeah, of course. Yeah, like obviously, this is not the best example of a best story. Well, actually, not really. Like what the Lego Movie was. Like that is a
Like,
really good story, and I think its message and everything. Like not only did it inspire me when I was like super young, but I think it inspired many others to basically do the same.
yeah, it's like, well, let me work with other people. Let me or even just the fact that it's like you get told that you're actually the most average person ever, but you can still have an impact.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
It's like you're not special, but you still matter. It's like, yeah, I
yeah.
do, don't I? Yeah, I
I
think
can't
so.
tell all these stories.
What?
Yeah, no, it's like yeah, I can't tell all these stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are a lot of. I'm trying to think. So I think Disney, early Disney, not current Disney, um,
yeah,
they used to have, the trope is like, oh, Disney will kill off like a parent or something like that. It's like, but Disney was specifically writing stories early on for families, not like for children, for families. He wanted the entire
yeah,
family to watch the movie together. So he would
yeah.
cover really kind of like all of the important aspects of life for every family member in a movie. It's just like this is what life is, but told in a package that you can show anyone.
Yes,
And I think that is that's something that feels incredibly lost as a piece of art nowadays. You meet a lot of
yeah,
people who they're like, "Oh, I'm writing this for myself or for this reason or to push this agenda," and I always hate that because I'm like, I just want to tell the truth, you know. That's the thing that matters most to me whenever I tell a story. I want to write what is true and honest and good. And if I'm not writing a
yeah,
story with that in mind, I don't want that story to exist.
yes.
And whenever I ingest a story that doesn't have those intentions, I feel like I wasted my time. I'm like, how dare you create this in the first place? Is how I feel about that.
Yeah,
Um, and I like distilling down very big concepts into like single words or things that could have a lot of elements to them into single words because I think it's just an interesting exercise. And what I try and put for like Disney movies and why I think they were so good, and I guess the good ones are still good. In a lot of movies that I still like that I consider my favorites, it's like why do I like this so much? And I think Star Wars would actually have the same element to it. The word that I think of to encapsulate everything that those stories have, uh, even if they have a lot of elements to them, is just the word charming.
yeah. I think we touched on that earlier just now. Like, oh yeah, with one, like the idea is that his like yeah, his art is bad, but the main appeal is that it's still charming, you
Yeah,
know.
there's like there's there are a lot of layers to what make it good. So like I watched Mob, and I actually have a friend that I want to watch Mob Psycho 100 because I
Yeah.
related a lot to oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. Mob's mentor. I can't. I'm
Oh,
totally blanking his name.
Reagan. Reagan.
Reagan. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
related a lot to Reagan,
Yeah.
but I actually think he would relate a lot to Mob personally. And so I was like,
Yeah.
I wanted to watch. I haven't read the manga. I've just watched the anime.
It's a one to one.
It is
It's
okay.
pretty much one to one. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because like for me, I feel more like Reagan, where Reagan's like, I'm just kind of existing, and not necessarily like I feel like a fraud, but I feel like I'm wasting all of the time that I've got, and I feel like I've already wasted so much of
Mm-hmm.
my past already. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's like even whenever he gets praise, he's like, but I've wasted so much that he has trouble actually
Yeah.
recognizing the good things he does, which is another thing that made Project Hail Mary feel so good because Grace in that movie feels
Yeah.
worthless too. and he's just doing his job essentially. Um, and then he ends up accomplishing so much more just by essentially being a normal human who got put on this incredible quest. But my other friend, I think he struggles with issues that Mob struggles with more, where Mob doesn't feel like he can actually be himself. And because he doesn't feel like he can
Yeah.
be himself, he kind of doesn't know who he is to begin with.
Yeah.
He's just like this blank slate for everyone else to project onto him what they want, and then he will just be that while he's around that person.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
And so I think that's so I wanted him to watch that so that me and him can talk to each other about that and be like, this is why I relate to Reagan. Who did you relate to? And hear him talk about Mob. Because also, whenever we met, he was going through a really big transition period in his life. But I had
Oh
already
yeah.
gone through this transition period. So whenever I was talking to him and like telling him a bunch of the stuff that I figured out about how to deal with these things, he was like, that's so relevant to what I'm going through right now. And that's kind of like what
Hmm.
Reagan was doing with Mob. And so I was just thinking about that
Yeah.
story like so many times whenever we talk. I'm like, yeah, yeah. But at the same time, even though I'm telling him all these things, I still feel like Reagan because I'm just like, but am I actually accomplishing something and will I be properly helpful to him later, or is he going to like grow out of me once he gets through this moment?
Yeah.
You know? And whenever I watched the ending for Mob Psycho 100, I was like actually crying because just how Reagan, uh, with his super secret workout regime, which I thought was hilarious. I just love how over the top he
Yeah.
is. Um, and he just goes to Mob and he's just like, "Hey, uh, I refuse to not be there for you, even though I've kind of just used you the entire time. I actually do
Yeah.
care about you and want to treat you better." Uh, and how he's literally willing to die at the end just to try and tell Mob that. You know, it's like
Yeah.
he's like actually just a guy, and yet just being a guy going up against this godlike entity who's literally just like a middle schooler.
Yeah.
He's like, I
Is the
won't
prodigy.
abandon you. You know?
Yeah. No, it was really good. For me, what got me was season 2, episode 8, which was the very Reagan centric episode. When they
Yes.
actually like go really deep into his character. Yeah.
Yes, that was the
That
episode where I
episode
was
is
like,
like one
oh
of my
man, now
favorite.
I understand Reagan and now I feel like him.
Yeah.
Where he's just like
Oh
going
yeah.
around trying to solve everybody else's stuff and then he's like puking even though he's not even eaten anything nor actually drank alcohol. He's
Yeah.
just like up to here with overthinking everything about his own life. And you just see that he has zero friends whatsoever, even though he's the most
Yeah.
outgoing guy ever. And you're like, oh man, like that's kind of like a universal human experience. Is at some point you're gonna feel lonely, you know, and then
Yeah.
almost everybody ends up in a career field that they don't want to be in, and then they just feel like, why am I here and what am I doing?
Yeah.
And the way that he just abandons everything to go into a career field where he just like, yeah, I'm just gonna lie, is his entire plan is
Yeah.
to
Pretty
leave
much.
leave all of his comfort to just start a fake job,
Which works out well in the end.
which works out very well. I love
Yeah.
one of the things I love about that story is that the most success he ever has as as I can't remember his job title.
Yeah.
A psychic. Yeah, the most success he has as a psychic is whenever he doesn't have Mob to help him. He like
Yeah.
actually becomes hyper successful because he's just working so hard and trying to maximize every aspect of his life. And while he's at the top, he's just like he realizes that he actually prefers the middle where he has friends and Mob to be there with him and experience life with him. And then Mob
Yeah.
comes in and saves him and makes it look like he actually was just bluffing the entire time and really is the most powerful psychic who has ever existed. And it's like, aw, It's like that's really
Yeah.
nice. And they, fix their relationship. Did you also find because the episode where Reagan just like tells Mob that Mob doesn't matter, and then Mob leaves him? I was like, Reagan wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
it was probably needed for like some actual conflict. Yeah.
well, it was
Yeah.
to. I guess the purpose of it in the story was to try and get Mob to actually
Yeah.
leave Reagan.
Away. Yeah. Yeah. Get
But
away
at the
and
same time,
do something in his life.
yeah, but at the same time, it was like Reagan would not speak down to Mob like that. That's
Yeah.
not his relationship to Mob at all. His relationship to Mob has been from the
Yeah.
beginning, like you see in that episode you were talking about, where he's absolutely pulling answers out of thin air to try and sound competent, but he's genuinely every single answer he gives to Mob is him trying to help Mob become a better person.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
whenever he in that episode makes fun of Mob for not having friends and not doing anything, it's like Reagan, you wouldn't do that. You would you'd be you wouldn't be like, yeah, you're a loser, Mob. You'd be like, hey, Mob, uh, why don't you like try and join a club or something? Like Reagan would actually support
Yeah.
that, which he kind of does initially, which is why it feels so odd whenever that conversation occurs to cause the split in the first place. Which I think is that same
Yeah.
episode, isn't it? I think that's the same episode where you get Reagan's
I
backstory.
think it was a two-parter, but it was the same. Yeah, basically the same
Same
story.
plot line, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that. That was the one element of all those stories where it felt off. Uh,
Yeah.
because Reagan wasn't acting in character whenever you could have gotten the exact same resolution in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like you could
I
have had
think
them split anyways.
pretty much. Yeah. I think it's purely just to have a lot more of an intense emotional reaction
I think
to
so.
when when it gets like resolved. It's actually a lot more how to say a lot more poignant.
Yeah, I think so. One of the other things I really liked in Mob Psycho 100 is the plot line with Dimple with
Oh
the
yeah.
broccoli. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
Whenever it's a really important thing as well for Mob. Whenever the shirt with the monkey on it gets revealed, and Dimple just laughs
Yeah.
at him, and he's like, "Mob, what are you wearing? That's so stupid." There are I guess three moments inside of that scene or inside of that story arc right there that I really like. I really like how Mob's resolution to prevent fighting Dimple is to just release all of his power. Where he's
Yeah.
like, Dimple's fighting me because Dimple is afraid of me killing him because he knows I can do that. So he's like, everything he's doing right now is because he's afraid of what will happen to him. So he just eliminates that option from occurring. He's like, now the only person who has power of life and death here is Dimple to me. Right?
Yeah.
And so, Dimple's been so egotistic throughout the entirety of the series. For him to be in the position where he actually has all of the power that he's been searching for. And he's like, I don't know what to do anymore now that I'm at the top. He actually has to reckon
Yeah.
with what he actually wants out of life. And then whenever he laughs at Mob for wearing that shirt, whenever everybody's been telling him that it looks amazing the entire time, and Mob's like, I know this is terrible, but like everybody keeps saying it's good, so I'm just gonna keep going because not everybody would lie, right? It's like, no, everybody would
Yeah.
lie to your face. Um, and then Mob just gets to tell Dimple, he's like, hey, I actually really value our friendship because you've always been honest with me and you've never lied to me, like in that way. He's like, I
Yeah.
actually can trust you, and how that just kind of like makes Dimple think like, oh, maybe the thing I actually like is just helping people. You know?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I wasn't wanting to be worshipped this entire time. Maybe I was just wanting to do the right thing,
Yeah.
and that provides a greater satisfaction. And then the moment whenever he's fighting Broccoli, and and Mob's passed out, and he's just like, "Hey, Mob, how's it going? Yeah, can you get up? Yeah, why don't you just like walk out there? You're always so strong. You're always so cool. You're always so good, and all this other stuff." Just like giving Mob this pep talk as Mob's like, "Oh yeah, I should go to bed, shouldn't I?" And then you like for a brief moment get the fact that he's absolutely faking everything to try and encourage Mob and not let him know
Yeah,
that he's like fighting for his life and has to make a
yeah,
sacrifice because he knows Mob's going to try and step in when that would be the last thing that would be good in this moment.
yep,
It's like, dang, it's like, why is one so good at making such incredibly powerful and emotional stories, you know?
yeah. I mean that episode was pretty much like when it released. It was pretty much an event around my friend group.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was saying like, they were talking about Dimple and all that, and yeah, like one when he has like when he has a story he really wants to tell. I think there's a very interesting conversation to have with One Punch Man now.
Yeah, I only watched
Uh,
season one. Everybody said stop, so I stopped. I'm one of those guys where it's like if it gets
yes,
bad, I don't want to go.
yeah. I I was like neck deep with everything. I was reading the web comic and then the manga, and then I was watching the anime. And yes, I agree. Just stop at season one. It is an incredibly novel and amazing season on its own. And in the manga, there's some. Well, sorry, I'll go with the web comic. There are some like really good moments, but overall, it really does feel like an idea being dragged a little bit too long. And then the manga
Tragic.
is trying to check that. It's weird actually. It's like the web comic is obviously the one that's the most ahead with and there's like really good moments of like quality here and there, but overall it's kind of gone on too long. And then the manga is like trying to keep up, but at the same time it's trying to do its own thing.
Mm.
And that in itself is like a lesser version of the web comic now. It has great art, no doubt about it, but story wise, it's now lesser. And then you have the anime, which is like lesser on both departments.
Too many cooks.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, Mob Psycho. Mob Psycho is it was like perfect as it is. There are a few books he's writing now. I know there's one called like Bug Eye or something like that.
I have heard
I
of
haven't read
that.
that one. Yeah, yeah. And then there was another one that I actually was reading, but I kind of dropped. Uh, I cannot for the life of me remember the name. It was something like Hero something. But the idea is that there's a sci-fi planet dealing with these type of enemies, and there was a fantasy planet dealing with these type of enemies, and both parties get switched. So
Hmm.
now the fantasy team has to fight the sci-fi villains, and the sci-fi team has to fight the fantasy villains. It's a very interesting idea, but at the same time, like I said, I've heard some great things recently about it, but where I dropped it, I was not that intensely into it as comparatively to like One Punch Man or Mob Psycho.
Yeah. So two stories that I'm actually thinking of right now, because one of them is still going, and I think, and I'm hoping that it's maintains its quality, and one that had such an incredible drop in quality, and I think you'll agree with me if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Um, so the first one that I'm really loving is Vinland Saga. Have you seen that?
Yes. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay, that series has moved me immensely. I don't think I've ever seen such a character arc before.
Yeah.
The you
Yeah.
know
No, I highly agree. Yeah.
yeah, with Thorfinn having this vendetta, and you get to the end of season one where he doesn't get the killing blow, and so he's just like flipping out because he's
Yeah.
failed at the one thing he dedicated his life to. And I know some people who don't like season two at all. They're like, oh man, the show really fell off. And I was like, you obviously weren't watching this for the story then,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was so invested in season two because he appears and he's a totally defeated man. in season 2,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, this is the end of ambition, like improper ambition. And so what he has to do
Yeah.
is he has to reckon with the fact that he's wasted his life and kind of doesn't actually remember his life anymore. And as he's remembering it, he also wants to be a better person and pursue better things.
Yeah.
So it's like seeing him go from this incredibly malicious and driven by spite person to being a truly nobody man, and then having to decide to just be a good person. He's like, what do you do
Yeah.
whenever you're nothing? He's like, well, I guess I could be good. And supposedly they're working on the third season, and I'm like, I hope the story actually goes through and is good the whole way through, because I'm invested in that.
Yeah. I haven't read the
Because
manga myself, but yeah, I'm hoping the same thing with
yes,
season three.
it's like, please let season 3 continue to be good, because especially I think I wouldn't say that I'm a pacifist, but I love the pacifism that he has. Like, it's
Yes.
so brutal and all this stuff, and to the point where he causes the murder of multiple families and towns. You know, he's
Yeah.
like explicitly the reason that many families are dead by his hand. Uh, and he's doing it just because Askeladd is just like, I'll let you try and kill me if you go and kill everybody in this town first, so that we can just walk in.
Yeah.
And and the fact that he just does all of it, you know, and it's just an incredibly compelling story. And even though it's a total switch up to where there's like zero fighting in season 2, but it's still just as compelling because you're watching somebody who has the ability to just kill everybody, just be a
Yeah.
slave and chop wood, and you're like, how'd you get here? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Uh, and see how he's almost more satisfied with being a slave than he ever was having all the power.
Yeah. So good.
And then he meets let's see, like, I can't remember what the other guy's name is. And then they just become best friends, and he just like helps him through all of this tragic stuff. And oh my goodness, the scene where the woman is dying as they're trying to free her,
Yeah.
and then she's like imagining herself in her husband's cart with the baby and their other child. I was crying that whole time. I was like, oh, bro, don't do this to me.
No, no, dude. Vinland Saga is like really good. Obviously, the immediate comparison you have to it is Vagabond,
I haven't seen
because
Vagabond
they have
yet, so.
yeah, they have very similar premises where it's like, oh, it's based on it's a real person that has existed in history, and they have like a journey from violence to like pacifism. Similar premises. Although Vagabond right now, uh, you can check it out purely for just the artwork. It is in the same vein as what Berserk is. Is like the artwork is almost near perfection,
Uh-huh.
and but obviously now the artist has gone on such a long hiatus. I don't know if he's ever going to finish it. Yeah.
That momentum is so important, but also taking breaks and finding the balance between those two is really hard.
Yes. Yeah.
So the other story, because this is one where I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a better show, but I also don't think I've ever seen a higher drop off in quality in a show. And it was a really big show here, at least. Was Arcane, the League of Legends show?
Yeah. 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 I haven't seen it personally because I don't have much of a, if anything, for League of Legends. But I when season one came out, it was like everywhere. You couldn't like not hear it.
Yes. So when season 1 came out, I like actively avoid League of Legends because I'm just like, I don't want to do, I don't, whatever's over there can be over there, right? I'm on the same page on
Yeah.
that end. But the Arcane season 1, I don't think I've ever seen a show that had better writing, characters, art, soundtrack. It's just like everything that goes into a series was essentially, it was just straight tens across the board. I have zero complaints about that show. for season one.
Wow, yeah. Yeah,
So
season one.
like everybody was watching it, and it was like for the first time in a long time where I was actually able to connect with a lot of other people on a show because we could talk about everything. And there's also if you ever watch it, let me know because there are a few character moments where it doesn't feel out of place for a character to make a decision, but at the same time, the decisions that the characters have to make in certain parts, it's really fun to talk about whether or not that was the correct decision. But at the same
Okay,
hand,
yeah,
season two, it if you look online, it has higher ratings than season one, but it is so bad. If you're a person who
yeah.
genuinely
Really?
likes stories and likes consistent characters and everything, it just it like everything except for the animation was so bad in comparison to the first season. I'd never seen such a
Wow.
drop off in quality. Character arcs that were leading in one direction just get abandoned and go another direction. Characters who seemed like they were going to be major players in the next season are like background characters now. And then you have the fact that what ends up happening is that you have Piltover and Zon, which are like two warring cities.
Yeah.
And you have Zon, who has this one guy who's at the top, and then he loses control, and now all these other mobs are trying to take over, and it's spilling over into Piltover and causing problems in Piltover. And so Piltover's like, well, we have to do espionage to like kill all these mob leaders so that we can have peace in Piltover again. And you think like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's like a whole, five season thing in itself is just a mob story, right?
That's
Yeah,
yeah.
that entire plot line is resolved in like 2 episodes in two separate like cutscenes, like not even like actual
Oh,
spoken sequences, and they just move on to the next part of the story, and you're like, what just happened? And it's just like so many
oh,
shortcuts and so many characters just don't act the same anymore. And you have there's a character that appears in the series for season two, and she appears, and you see her, and you're just like, you're here to progress the plot. You aren't actually a character, are you? And then
yeah.
she's just there to progress the plot and make the characters
Okay.
act the way that they want. And it's just like, how did you go from literal perfection, where I have
Yeah.
nothing negative to say about the show, to the point where I almost downloaded League of Legends, but I still had enough sense after watching it to not do that, to I'm not going to watch anything else that they make because they dropped the ball so hard on season two.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane, the drop off in quality. And the other thing that's insane about season one is that like every line of dialogue has double meaning to it. Finding a show that has double meanings in its dialogue is already hard, but it was like the entire first season, everything everyone said was connected to something else in the story. So like every conversation was a little bit deeper than what the characters were actually saying to each other.
Wow.
And yeah, it was, and so many I have so many friends who still tell me that season 2 is better. And I'm like, how in the
Really?
world can you say that? How in the world can you say that? And I had one friend in particular who watched all of season 1 again to watch season 2.
Yeah.
So he watched it, the day before he watched the entirety of season 1, and the day after watched the first episode of season 2, and then as it released watched the rest of it. He also still says season 2 is better. And I'm like, how? How can you do that? How can you say that? And I think it's just because the hype that season 1 created was just that strong that so many people just ate everything that season 2 did and just didn't question it.
Man.
Because I asked him on
You're
that
almost
point of
making
like
me. Yeah.
character inconsistencies. I was like, but you get how these characters are hyper inconsistent with what their stated objectives and relationships are, right? And he said, yeah, but people are like that. That was his excuse. He agreed with me for all of my complaints about season 2 being terrible, and then still said it was better than season 1, even though he also had no reason to complain against season 1.
That those kind of like excuses for storytelling where it's like, oh well, people are just like that. Um, for me, they do come off as a little, lazy because it's like, how do I say this? Like obviously the way that you write characters are always supposed to be not as like I said, they don't always have to be the most consistent, but they need to be believable. And I think if you
Yes.
lose that believability, you can't just say, "Oh, well, people change sometimes." You know, it like this is a show I'm supposed to watch. It's not like I'm meeting this person and then like in like 7 years time he changes. I understand. It's like I'm watching a through line of a show. I would expect the character to have sort of like a consistent like through line with the show as well.
Hmm. Well, even in your own life, right? You will make decisions that are counter to what you would normally make. But even whenever
Yes.
you make decisions that are normally counter to what you would normally make, you do have an internal reason for making that decision. So there is a
Yeah.
consistency that a lot of other people might not know about because they aren't experiencing your POV. But whenever you're watching a show, you are the omniscient viewer. So you technically should know everything that that character knows. So
Yeah.
whenever they make an inconsistent decision, you're like, we skipped part of the plot or I missed something. And it's like, no, you didn't miss anything. It's that the author is lying to you. He's not
Pretty
telling the story.
much.
He's not writing the history of this series down anymore. He's now trying to dictate what he wants it to be.
Yes.
And so it's like,
Actually, quite right. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's why it was so frustrating. It was like you had season 1 where you're just watching this slow collapse of every single character and what they're trying to accomplish into each other to the point where one half of the characters have just made a decision that will cause death and destruction for everyone. And then you have the other half of the characters who were on the brink of making a decision to destroy everybody and are now like, we should actually pull back and help the people that we've been betraying the entire time. And then this first season ends with the fact that both of these sides making those decisions are about to be put into a situation where neither of those decisions actually matter. So how are they going to move forward from that?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the resolutions that they were making aren't going to be relevant because of a decision that one random actor made that makes everyone else's plot lines. All of them are changed characters. So how are they going to deal with the fact that the world they were trying to create isn't an option now? And like that's what season 2 was
Yeah.
setting up. And then it completely ignores that. It just skips over that being the actual problem for season 2. I'm going to tell you the absolute worst thing. I'm going to go ahead and spoil season 2 for you. Not using any character names, but you'll know once you actually watch the first season. You have two characters who are best friends. Character 1 gets trapped inside an alternate universe. His best friend is still left behind. He's having to go and he's trying to save the world, right? His best friend reappears out of nowhere, finds him, and then tries to kill him. Just like, it's just like, there's no alternative option. I have to kill you or everything dies.
Yeah.
Right? The resolution to their arc is that he was taken by the magic of their universe to an alternate universe where his current actions were leading his best friend, which would cause the end of the universe. So his friend, having caused the end of the universe, goes back in time and into an alternate universe to his best friend to say, hey, stop me from going down this messianic path by telling me that what I'm going to do is going to cause the end of the universe. Because I won't listen to anyone else because you're my best friend.
Yeah.
So his entire story, whenever you actually get the full proper sequencing of it, is that he's pulled into an alternate universe that is a post-apocalypse that is caused by his friend. His friend says, hey, I caused the post-apocalypse, I need you to go back and tell me not to do this, because then I will stop and we can save the universe. He gets sent back to the original time and tries to murder his best friend. And then, later on, after failing to murder his best friend, goes over to him and he says, "Hey, you in the future told me to tell you not to make this decision because you would end up bringing about the end of the universe." And he's like, "Oh, thank you for telling me that I told you to tell me not to end the universe." And you're like, "Wait, so why did you try killing him?" You were explicitly told all you have to do is go back in time to tell me not to do it for me to not do it, because he's at the point where he's essentially the universe itself is what his best friend does, but to become the universe itself he accidentally kills everybody in the universe. And so he goes back in time and you're like, what did he see that makes him betray his best friend and try and kill him? And the answer is he saw his best friend who told him not to kill him but to talk him out of the situation.
Oh.
So his character arc literally makes no sense once it's revealed. So you get an incredibly strong hook and then an absolute betrayal of everything that he's done up to that point. And that's one of the things where my friend was like, it makes sense though, because people just be like that. And I'm like, people don't be like that, actually.
Yeah, no. They don't.
You don't have your friends tell you, hey, tell me not to destroy the universe. And then you go, right, murder. Like that's not what your best friend does, you know? That was why and anyways, that's just one character's plot line. There are multiple other character plot lines that have that same inconsistency. Whenever originally it was like a slow burn of this character having to come to grips with things that are way beyond his scope and his willingness to actually engage with. Yeah, but it was crazy. The other thing I kind of wanted to move towards was asking you what are the, because me and Jen talked about having a good media diet allowing you to be more creative if you think about them correctly. And so I asked him like what are like the most influential shows or movies or books, just like anything that you've come across before that you're like, oh, I'm pulling from this inspired this about my story or stories.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've mentioned it before, but obviously Nier Automata or Automata. That one to me, I would always say is like my nexus point to really broadening my vision, right? Like, I don't have to. It basically told me I don't have to tell a story that is just, character does this and then goes here. It's like no. Play with how you present your story and see how the characters deal with the ripples of it. So that would be like I'll go by each medium, I suppose. So like that is for like a game. For a movie, my favorite movie of all time is Moon, Sam Rockwell.
Moon?
Do you know that one? Yeah, Moon. Yeah.
No, I don't.
I won't really. I do recommend it. It's to me, it's like a very, very good, again, like a sci-fi conundrum sort of ordeal. It's like, oh, I won't say much about it. It's just Sam Rockwell. He works on the moon, and something goes awry, and now he's stuck on the moon. So, how like that kind of like isolation and the way that the movie tackles the themes of it to me is like super duper like intriguing. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like immediately, I just wanted to write something like that. And it will like, not, it'll be funny. It's like in the future when you see like my stories and then you kind of like cross reference to that, you'll probably see some similarities to it. What else? Like comics. Ooh, comics. Oh, they. Um, I guess for comics, I actually look more at comic writers and artists like careers and all that, rather than their works as like pinning them. So obviously something like Naoki Urasawa, the guy that did I believe Billy Bat and all that. I hope I didn't get his name wrong. But
What did he make?
him in he made a Billy Bat, Pluto.
Oh,
Um,
he's the one that made Pluto. Pluto is
yeah,
so good.
yeah, Pluto was so good. 20th Century Boys. Uh, yeah, just all of his stuff. He's done more than just that, obviously, but
I've been trying to get other people to watch Pluto.
yeah,
I'm like, guys, you don't understand. It's so good.
he's great. Another one, Inyo Asano. Uh, to me, he does very, very grounded but really, really dreary stories.
Hmm.
But in the end of them, there's always that kind of like through line of, you know, hopefulness or like he made a book called Goodnight Pum Pum, which is like kind of notorious for being really drab and dark. But if you read about it, it's really just this like it's a story about a boy just trying to understand the world around him when everything about adult life or even his own like childhood is pretty much this like constant contradicting thing. And yeah, other ones. Let me think. I mean, there's so much when it comes to like manga. I can talk about that for like literal hours and just going into
Oh
like
yeah.
each artist and all that.
Is
I
over there like comics and manga kind of like the primary entertainment source? Because Jin also had loads of
yeah.
comics and manga that he was talking about.
It's yeah, it will be a bit of both because they kind of have to share the same space.
Hmm.
Like obviously, if you go to a convenience store, they'll have like local comics, um, and then maybe at a higher end bookstore. I won't say a higher end bookstore, but just a bookstore in general. They may just have very localized cheap prints of manga that are like literally like what like 20 US cents per book.
Dang,
Like
that's
they're
cheap.
that cheap. Yeah, 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 they're that cheap. And then obviously comics do come at a bit of a higher rate, but uh, I was lucky enough to uh, have family members that could just like you know get them for me or for like any kind of
Hmm.
or like I'll visit my grandma because my grandma lives like um, all the way on the other end of the earth, and I would go to stores and that's how I would pick up books on like you know superheroes or even just Western books. So yeah,
Do you ever
but
have friends
yeah,
be
the
like,
comics.
"Hey, can you like buy these Western comics or movies for me, and just bring them back whenever you get back from a trip?"
Yes, a couple of times actually. It
I've
was
done that.
only
If I
at
know somebody's traveling somewhere, I'm like, "Get this for me, bring it back, please," and I just give them
yeah,
the money for it.
they, yeah. They always come off cheaper as well, which is always a nice little bargain. But yeah, comic sphere and like manga spheres, I could just talk about them constantly. I think for me, if I had to have an answer on like what inspires me with with that side of the medium, I just say the medium itself. I just love
Okay.
it so much. Yeah, I love it so much that there's not one specific point that I can like. Well, there is multiple, but if I can't generalize it all into one guy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
totality of what
yeah,
makes a comic.
pretty much. Yeah, yeah. And it's there's so many. Like even recently, I've been reading The Max by Sam Keith. Rest in peace. Uh, Really good book. You know,
Is it the Mac?
yeah. The Max, two X's at the end.
Oh, the Max. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that about?
It's about it's an interesting like conversation to have as well because I've always tackled the idea that like a piece of art should be good on its own. You should look at it and you experience it and on its own should be great. But there's always that, in spite of the idea of separating art from the artist, there are moments where you learn about the artist's like story, like his own story, like his life story, and it just enhances what you read. So, like
Mm-hmm.
for Sam Keith, the author of the Max, he was someone that he had a lot of like dating troubles growing up. So the book, The Max, is kind of like a not just that, but a lot of his life's work is kind of like um, based around that, kind of his own like mental dysphoria with life and everything, and having sort of like a connection to this other person, being dependent on that, even though you shouldn't be too dependent on other people if you're not so stable yourself. So, but it's all on the lens of like this like washed up superhero. Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. So the backs I highly recommend.
So you did a game, a movie, and a comic book. Are there any other
Yeah.
mediums that inspire you?
Let me think. I mean, if I go into like music, I won't say that. I mean, for me, when it comes to like writing, uh, one writing practice that I do is actually for a character, I would actually make like a playlist of what that character would listen to, if you know what I mean. Like this is exactly what that
I
character.
have I have heard people
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. So um, it's a very fun practice, uh, but obviously I don't have any like immediate like, oh, this is the genre I listen to when I'm like listen to music. I listen to a lot of stuff.
I hit shuffle on everything.
For me, it's my liked songs. I'll hit shuffle on that because I always forget what I liked.
Uh
I'll listen to something and I'm like, okay, I'll like it, and then
huh.
I'll go back and I'm like, oh, I like that.
I do that on occasion
Yeah.
too, and every single time I hit my liked songs and start listening to them, I'm just like absolute bangers the whole way through. I have
Yeah.
such good taste in music.
That for me is like maybe once every 3 days.
It'll be like a
The
month,
other
like
2 days,
once a month.
yeah. Like the other days, I'll be listening to it, I'm like, okay, I understand why I would like this, but why did I like this?
Hmm.
Why did I
Uh,
put it in my liked stories? Sorry, like songs.
it's so much fun to go back through all of your like favorite things, especially whenever you still enjoy them, and you're just like,
Oh yeah.
I made great decisions. So I do like having a bit of a lightning round, and these are relevant to something we talked about earlier. So
Yeah.
three quick questions. What is your favorite color?
Hot pink.
Hot pink. All right, bold
Yeah.
man. Do your shoes make you run fast?
Yes, because I don't want to step on stones.
Nail it. And your favorite dinosaur?
Ankylosaurus, because they're
Ankylosaurus.
like straight from a cartoon.
It looks stupid. I love it.
It looks stupid because it's like, but then they also have like a wrecking ball at the back. It's like I could have drawn that.
I could have drawn that. I could have made that. Bad
Yeah,
design.
exactly.
Bad design. If I could have come up with it, it's a bad design.
I
Uh,
just love that. Yeah.
my favorite part is that it's called an ankylosaurus because the worst thing you could imagine is having that hit you in the ankles, but that's like the perfect height that it's aiming at. It's like it's aimed at the thing that you'd be most terrified of it hitting. It's like a scooter.
Exactly.
You know how
Yeah.
you people see people do like little flips on it and stuff.
Oh.
It's like if you ever been hit in the side
Yeah.
by a scooter, it's over for you. You quit life for like 10 minutes at least. And that's just the
Oh man.
same. That's the same feeling I get with an ankylosaurus. I'm like, could you imagine being a T Rex and an ankylosaurus just like hits you right there,
Yeah.
and you're just
Exactly.
like, you know what, you're good. I'm going. I'm going over here now. Have a nice day. But the reason I asked
Yeah.
those questions because you brought it up earlier,
Yeah.
or well, you just talked about it
Yeah.
in general, really. is that these are questions that like every single child is going to ask you. And so I was like, if
Yeah.
every
Oh my
single
God.
child is
Yeah.
going to ask you these questions, they must be important. There's something fundamental about these questions that are
Yes.
necessary to know.
Yeah. I
Because
mean, they're
like,
asking, do you want to know more about you as well? And that's their
oh,
kind of like
okay,
framework, right? I'm guessing like, if they're asking that they want to know more about you and those kind of questions are like their framework to understand people.
I think my initial thought, one, it would be probably understanding people a little bit better. But I
Yeah.
think those things are probably references to probably different references to elements of the most exciting bits of reality. I don't
Oh yeah,
you know
yeah.
the reason I keep asking the same questions to a lot of people over again, because if you watch the other interviews I have, which by the way, there's the one with Isaiah Freeman, um, that one might interest you of the previous
Really?
interviews I've done. There's I
Yeah.
can't remember at this point which part of our conversation it was, but you touched on something that he also brought up. So for him, the first conversations I did were people who really like poetry. Um,
Hmm.
and so I've never really been into poetry, so it was interesting to talk to him. And he talks about the like he's coming up with a theory called poesis of it's like levels of enlightenment to telling better stories.
Mm.
Uh, and he hasn't finished properly creating it, but we go over it, and he has a diagram that he uses and shows off of it. But the idea is you kind of like have a starting point for stories, which is the feeling. And he's like, this is the side that doesn't
Yeah.
have the actual knowledge of how to create a good story. It just has to create a story because it feels on the inside that something needs to exist that is inside of you.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you have the next layer, which is like structure. These aren't his actual names for all of them, but there's like structure is the next layer. And he says structure is where a lot of people get stuck. And it's also the place where once you become smart enough, you actually start seeing the connecting pieces of stories. But he says a lot of people that get stuck on structure then start to hate the people who are just feelers, who write stories because they just feel the stories. Um,
Yeah.
and that in our conversation that I had with him, I said I think I got stuck at level 2 for a long time. I knew in myself that I used to just only care if the structure of a story was good, and now I'm much more of like actually a story meaning something on a personal level matters a lot to people, and potentially more than the structure itself. But you need both of them for the next level of writing, for the stuff that matters in the long run, and the stuff that'll be
Mhm.
remembered too. And then there were two other layers to it. So those are the first two steps. And he said the hardest part is getting past level 2 because he said level 3 is essentially recognizing the importance of the feeling, but also knowing how to structure feeling. And then the layer after that is essentially being connected to God as the final layer. I think he called it the scryer.
Yeah.
And we actually talk about different authors and different works at each of the layers and who he thinks are the people who are the last layer. And one of those people is Shakespeare that he uses as an example,
Oh.
which I would agree with.
Yeah.
And the other one is like Dante Alighieri and
Oh yeah.
Goethe, which I haven't read all of their stuff. I've only really read like Shakespeare stuff. But it would, for you, I think you would find that structure of storytellers interesting to hear
Yeah.
about.
Actually, it is. Kind of is. Yeah.
We talk about a lot of other stuff too, but that story structure thing is really interesting. And he said whenever he kind of figures out more about the structure, he wants to run the interview again and talk about things. And
Yeah.
also, whenever I get a little more famous and get more stuff done, he wants
Hmm.
to do a reverse interview. So I was like, hey, that'd be cool to
Yeah.
do all that. But there are some other elements of stories and writing that he talks about. It's in a different section because our conversation is a little more philosophical, and I think ours is a bit more. There's a lot of philosophical to it, but it's more down to earth than
Yeah.
his and my conversation because he's a teacher, so he's trying to like hit the next plane of trying to think about things and then bring that next plane downwards. Whereas I feel like for us, a lot of what we're doing is we're trying to connect with the people on the ground right now that we know and trying to lift them up to wanting better stories.
Yes, yeah,
Uh, so it's interesting trying to talk to people of like every level because there's
yeah.
I'm trying to think. Would you say you feel like you're at the top trying to bring stories down to people, or that you're with people on the ground trying to bring them up?
Ooh, that is a damn good question. I That's the thing because I normally and I have kind of always embodied this uh mentality that I am writing these stories kind of one for me. So, and obviously whoever comes by is always going to be a plus. Uh, but if I am my own audience member, and what I said before about like how curiosity will, you know, get you to write the story and trying to find the answer itself, I would kind of say that I'm kind of on the ground trying to go up because I'm trying to search for that kind of, maybe not necessarily always like divinity, but just the answers that I'm trying to pose in the story, these questions to myself as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I would also say I think I'm on. I would say I'm also on the bottom, wanting to lift up, and this would be why. So using his structure that I was talking about, where you have like feeling the like scholar, the person
Yeah.
who knows how it's written, then the path to enlightenment. Enlightenment is how I'll describe it. Um, I feel like I hit. I feel like I am somewhere in the third layer, towards like I got past the point of thinking structure is the only part that matters, to being like,
Yeah.
actually the feeling is the actual foundation of a story mattering in the first place. And so for personal reasons, I would not at all claim to be in the fourth one, because there's a certain personal element that I don't feel like I have, because I feel like the to reach the final layer requires a certain personal understanding or conviction that I don't think I have inside of myself, which is, but knowing that I care about both elements of the structure and the feeling, I feel like that would put me in the third structure. I don't think I actually asked him um, those questions previously to see what he would label. But from the third structure, the thing that I'm realizing is that the majority of people are only at feeling. That is the only reason they engage with stories in the first place, is the feeling
Yeah.
or the connection that it brings. Which is also why I initially liked stories, too. Like the only reason I engage with a story is because it makes me feel something. Um,
Yep.
and so it's kind of like you get past the structure part of where you want just the structure to be good, to the point where you realize if you have structure but no feeling whatsoever, it won't stick. And then that feels like a revelation from on high that you get, but you also want to see people be raised up because you know that the majority of people are only engaging for feeling, but you want them to know about the structure so that they can find better art to engage with.
Yeah.
So it's like I want to be with the people on the ground, showing them what I've already come to realize, which is like there's a layer higher than you're engaging with, and I want you to walk up the mountain with me so that we can just engage with art better and then create better art together.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if we can all rise
Yeah.
up, then I feel like
Drop.
reaching the
Yeah.
fourth and final stage gets easier because I don't want to be up here all alone
Yeah.
either.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's like the worst thing whenever you find something and you're like, this is life changing, and then nobody else knows about it, and then you ask people to engage with it, and then no one's willing
Yeah.
to engage it, because then you just feel alone. You're like, where are my people?
Pretty
You know.
much.
That's why, kind of like you were saying, you were writing the story for yourself, and I
Yeah.
think I think that is an improper way of putting it. Not for
Hmm.
the fact that you aren't writing the story for personal reasons, but because you're actually writing the story in the first place, it is meant to exist for other people to engage with it as well. Right?
That's
Like you
true.
don't know
Yeah.
how successful it's going to be, but if it existed with zero hope or zero other people eventually being able to find it, you're writing it with hope essentially that people will see it. Which
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
is another reason why stories that end poorly feel like a lie, because it's like, well, if you actually believed that life was meaningless in this way, then why would you create in the first place? The act of you creating denies the reality that life is pointless or meaningless, you know?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
so it's like creating a story for yourself, it's very personal, but you're wanting other people to connect with that part of you that you're creating the story for.
Yeah.
So it's like every story is created as a communal thing, even if the community never finds it, even if it gets lost to the void. You create stories based on hope.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty good way of putting it, actually.
Yeah. Do you have like
Yeah.
maybe another way of putting it, or an element to add to
Probably.
that idea?
Yeah. I guess so. I mean, obviously, the reason why I had that kind of like perception is like when I was younger, I was always making comics with like my friends in mind. Like this was like during like middle school and all that. I'll be like, hey, look, I'm making you like this character, and you're going on this wacky adventure, blah 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 blah. And weirdly enough, it's like well, not weirdly enough, but I realized I was always making it, and they like them as an audience was kind of an excuse just to make that thing. If you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because I knew like I came to the realization later that yeah, they never really read these books that I made.
Yeah.
They're just like they'll just look at it and go, oh, that's pretty cool, man. And then they'll pass it back.
I am proud of
Um,
you for doing that.
yes, pretty much. Like, oh, that's nice. And like looking back, I was like, yeah, like maybe I knew this entire time that they never really read it. It's just the fact that I had an excuse to like make those stories in the first place, uh, like helped, right? And I
Yeah.
realized like, yeah, I mean, obviously now maybe like not that it'll be passed on as neglectfully, but like Jin obviously now is like one of my audience members, right? He
Mm-hmm.
is always like shadowing what I'm like. He's always shadowing my progress on bonobos and asking what's going on there. So yeah, pretty much yeah. So like maybe from the beginning, like okay, when I started out, technically I had zero audience members. Now I actually have one, and I think it's because of that hope that you're doing this for people around you. So
Yes. The the thing I realized, so this channel, creating a YouTube channel, this is like
yeah.
my sixth one actually, my sixth try. For other reasons, the
Hmm.
other ones failed in the past. The primary reason I used to live in a place that didn't have internet. So
Oh yeah.
hard to upload stuff to the internet when you don't have internet, right?
Yes, pretty
Um,
much.
but what I realized is whenever I originally started creating stuff and I was like trying to show it to everybody in my family and all of my friends, and then I realized,
Yeah.
like you said, none of them ever watched any of it. They were all like, "Oh man, I can't wait to support you," but you get like analytics and stuff whenever you post something online, so you know who's
Yeah.
watching and who's not watching. And it was like I told 30 of you, and this has one view. So either only one of you out of the 30 watched it, or a stranger found it, and he's the only one that's engaged with it, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to realize that the people you're writing or creating art for, it's probably not your immediate family.
Oh yeah, obviously not.
So it's like, okay, so my immediate family probably isn't going to help me actually break through or make it to the next level, right?
Mhm.
um you maybe could be born into like a very artistic family who all helps each other, and like nepotism gets you moved up or something like that, but that's not the majority of people in the world. That's very, very
Oh no.
small amount of people. So for the majority of
Yeah.
people in like our position, it's like I have to go out and I have to find the actual people who want to engage with what I'm creating, and the only way I can do that
Yes.
is to create and then post it and pray, you know? And then it's not only to do that once, it's to do that with everything, And then
Yeah.
to also engage with their work. I can't just have them engaging with mine, which is one of my biggest issues, is that I have trouble keeping up with other people because I'm always like wanting to do my thing. Um,
Yeah.
so I always have to like set aside time to make sure I'm going back and engaging with other people's works too, so that we're helping each other build up. Um,
Pretty much. Yeah.
and so it takes a change in mindset because you can really get focused in just on yourself and what you're doing, when again you're creating in the first place to engage with other people. And so it's like, well, that's what they're also doing, is they're also creating to engage with other people, so I need to be engaging with it, you know
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, I
yeah.
think your mission, yeah, your mission all around is just a very interesting one. Like actually trying to, like it's like you scratch your back, I scratch yours with this kind of like like you're creating stuff, I'm creating stuff, and like in all honesty, yeah, dude, I really think it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, so uh like moving on to one of the next points, I actually haven't done this yet, but it's kind of where I'm trying to get everything to head in the long run. So one of the first things we talked about was AI, right? So
Yes.
for me, one of the things I had to realize was I need to create for the sake of just needing to create. Like, it is personally something I have to do to have the drive to live.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, because it's like, okay, if AI really comes in and it blows everything up so that no artist could ever get a job again, would I continue to create? And it's like, yes, I would, actually.
Yeah.
Even if I would never have the hope of being famous or having anyone see my stuff ever, I would still create. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you whenever Jin talked about bonobos. I was like, oh, this is like exactly
Yeah.
the same idea that I'm kind of wrestling with. Um, so whenever you find the solution in your story, give it to me. I need it. Uh,
Hopefully in the near future.
hopefully in the near future.
Yeah.
So my idea was just like, I still want people to create things because I like seeing other people's personal creations more than I like seeing anyone's AI creation. Like, I also have that aversion
Yeah.
naturally. Will I engage with
Yeah.
AI created stuff? It's like, yeah, because it's everywhere. Some of it's going to be good, some of
Yeah.
it's
You
going to be
can't
bad.
escape it.
Yeah, you just can't escape it. It's like, I have already embraced the fact that it's reality now.
Yeah.
But I still, like, I love puppetry. An
Mhm.
AI could maybe, like, create a movie that looks like puppets, but it can't make a puppet nor operate a puppet. That still requires just a
Yeah.
human being to do, you know? And so it's like, for me,
Yeah.
puppetry is something that still matters, to the point where I plan on reaching out to some people who make puppets soon. Hopefully, I can get an interview with one of them. I want to know their processes and stuff. And so it's like, there are certain elements to creation that are truly impossible for an AI to create, because an AI is meant to just be a digital tool. Um, and I also want people to realize, maybe not that they don't, perhaps you want to create things not because you want it to be successful, because I think a lot of people feel pressure because of social media to create to be
Yeah.
successful. And
Yeah.
so I think that makes a lot of people who would just create on their own not create in the first place, because they feel like there's a pressure to perform well. When it's like, well, no, if you feel like you just need to create something, just create it even if nobody sees it. it's just something that's inside of you that needs to get out. So
Yeah,
it's like my
I highly agree.
yeah. So it's like I want to create an environment or like a platform where the idea is not I hope I get successful being an artist on this platform, but it's a platform for people who are like I value creating art by hand just for the sake of creating art. Like I want to be in a community of people who are just creating art because creating art is important to me and I want to get better at it and I want to be able to show other people my stuff. And if I got successful, good. But also, the idea isn't to be successful. It's just to have a place for me to create, because that's all that actually matters
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Is that I create something that I needed to create, and I hope you enjoy it. So like, I want to create an environment where people who are wanting other creatives to review their work, but also encourage them to keep going, can go from ground zero of just being like, all I can draw are stick figures. I want to make the Mona Lisa at the end. And they'll be like, cool. One, you're not going to make the Mona Lisa. But two, continue creating because people need not the Mona Lisa again. They need your art. So you're going to have to
Yes.
go through the
Yeah.
process of learning what your art is and what your stories are. And then for people who do it and maybe think, oh, I have to like become successful with it, they can find out, oh, I don't need to be successful at all. I can just create as a hobby for fun on the side and enjoy it that way exclusively. And for people who need other artists to help them and encourage them to keep going if they are determined to make it a career field, they can find that support and actual honest feedback.
Yeah.
And then
Pretty
also
much.
to
I
help
think.
yeah, sorry, go.
No, go on. No, you go ahead.
Okay. And the other hope is creating anything like your friend said. It's like it requires so much effort. But if you're a starting creative, you already know that you have zero money. You have zero ability to actually do things. So the other hope is to get creative people out of the mindset that they have to be making money to do a big group effort. They just need to make it anyways with zero funding and with zero return on investment, which is a
Yeah.
really hard sell. But I think it's necessary because a lot of people who are making it nowadays are doing that. Like the people who are making like Obsession and Markiplier with the Iron Lung,
Yeah.
right? And how he's wanting to create more stuff. It's like, yeah. He started with zero, created from zero, and because he allowed himself to create from nothing with zero return, he ended up at the point where he is now able to turn a major profit on a small movie to create more stuff later. But it's the mentality of I have zero, I will get nothing out of it, but I'm still going to put the investment in because it matters to me that I want to foster, because that's the actual thing that you have to foster inside of yourself as a creative.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have
Pretty
to
much, yeah.
set the groundwork for that. And so like I have a Discord, an actual Discord channel, and I used it for I do a monthly movie night
Mhm.
with friends. So it's just a place to like put everything. But I'm actually wanting to convert that from the monthly movie night while still having that activity for everybody. Or maybe creating a new Discord page where it's like this is the Discord. These are authors, painters, digital artists, puppets, having a layout for them where it's like this is what I'm creating. Can I talk to other puppeteers? Can I show off my work? Maybe you're creating a short film or like an animation, and it's like, yeah, there's some voice actors here too, and you're just like, hey, you go into the voice actor page and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm creating this animation. Do any of you want to like voice for me real quick? So you can like it to hopefully make it easier to connect with people. And maybe I could at some point end up making a larger platform. But it's like I have this big idea, but it's also a really hard idea because you have to sell a lot of people on it, and then you have to really hard filter a lot of people out of it because if you get bad actors, it'll ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
but that's one of the things I'm like with some of the people that I'm talking to, I plan on going back and talking to them and just being like, hey, as an artist, what do you wish a platform actually did for you? And then trying to create that first on Discord. And if I end up growing this enough, hopefully making an actual platform that satisfies that need.
Yeah, admirable ambition, honestly.
Yeah. And
Pretty
so,
admirable, yeah.
but again, that's like it's one of those things where it's like, would this ever be successful? I don't know, but I still have to create it anyways because I need to create.
Yeah, yeah, might as well give it a shot because, like, it's like you said just now, like with AI, like, yeah, you could create with it, but I think the fact that you would make things with your hands, spend time with it, it almost becomes an actual byproduct of you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that the alternative just can't like convey. Which I think, like, wrapping around when someone will make the argument that, like, oh, AI, has no soul, is like, yes, I agree, because you would see like a drawing and it's like it probably took someone what 15 hours, 20 hours, 30
Mm-hmm.
hours even, and you can probably most likely feel every hour from that painting. Whereas, like, some guy would say, hey, I made like a 10-minute AI video in like what 40 minutes, and it's like fine, but obviously there's already a disconnect. If you know what I mean. You look at it and it's like, I can't tell what this thing is supposed to represent for you, in comparison to like a like a art piece or a puppet even, you know.
I think a really important thing that I want to lay the groundwork for this idea is that the idea is for traditional artists, because I think a lot of people who do traditional art are afraid and are getting too scared to approach doing art at all. And that's why I said I don't want the
Yeah,
idea for it to be, oh, I hope I get successful if I join this platform. Um, because I'm like, if you're approaching it from that perspective, I think you will fail and you won't find what you're looking for here. So I want the idea. Uh, I think it's important that whenever I create it, it's stated with two things. It's like, one, it's not an anti AI platform, because if somebody wants to use AI in their personal life, like, why would I bother? If there's somebody who wants to create AI art, it's like I have no reason to be like, you can't do that. It's like, well, that's what they want to do. But I don't want the platform to be for AI art. I want the platform to be people who are making traditional art of any sort.
yes,
So it's like, it's not
yeah,
anti AI, it is pro tradition, is the way
yeah,
I want to format it. Because again, since you have, especially right now, so many people who are full anti, it's like, no, I don't. There's a George Orwell quote, and I think this is a good way of explaining it. He was a
yeah,
socialist for a little bit, and he said that he left socialism because whenever he went there, he realized he saw what being poor did for people, and he's like, I want to help the poor
yeah,
people out of that lifestyle into a better lifestyle. And he said, and the socialists at his time were all saying the same thing. And he said, but the longer I spent time around them, the more I realized they did not love the poor. They hated those richer than them. So he's like,
yeah,
I left because I realized these people I'm hanging out with are not pro people below them. They are anti people above them. And he said that was a self destructive behavior. And
ah,
that's my point, that I want to kind of be well known whenever I'm making this. It's not I am anti these other people. It's that I am pro the traditional, because that's the thing
yeah,
I value
yeah,
most. Because
yep,
if I establish it anti something, it immediately will have bad actors on it. People who think that they
yeah,
can get people to rally behind them and go fight other people. And it's like, no. They're also trying to create. I don't want to go, you can't create. I want us to go, hey, the time and effort it would take for you to learn how to like actually do animation by hand is a lot. but you will get more personal satisfaction pursuing that. And I want to encourage you to take up the tradition that made you inspired to use a shortcut. In our opinion, a shortcut.
Yeah.
So, but that again, that's a hard filtering of a lot of people. There are going to be loads of people who you'd have to immediately ban off of that platform the moment they said that sentiment. It's like, hey, I hear that you're anti this thing. I'm not. You're not. None of us here are anti. We are pro this, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really hard to convey, and especially online. It's like, well, you can't actually look at people and know what their reactions to things are going to be, which just makes any platform hard.
Pretty much. Welcome to the internet.
Yeah, welcome to the internet. Uh, but yeah, I think I might have drained almost all the conversation pieces that I had. I don't know if you had anything else to go on.
Um, I, I think I'm also, you know, not to say drained out or anything, but yeah, think we've pretty much covered a lot of bases.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. I will absolutely be excited for whenever you finally release Bonobos. Oh, that was one of the things.
I am geared
On
up.
on your
Yeah.
platform, do you do traditional art? Because it looks like you also draw, unless that was other people's artwork.
Yeah. It's I draw and uh, yeah, it's pretty much anything that I'm going to make, maybe except for music. I'm not that proficient in it,
Mm-hmm.
but will definitely be from me.
All right,
So
that's
yeah,
cool. I like the one
yeah,
man army.
yeah. Thanks.
I
It's
respect
a
it.
Thank you. It's a it's an arduous task, or it's an
Awesome.
arduous responsibility.
Yeah. So I guess the last question I always ask: is there anything that we didn't cover that you feel like you need to say?
Oh, uh, love your mothers.
Love your mothers. That's a good one. I like my
All
dad
right.
too. Don't worry.
Yeah, same
Love
here.
your
I love my
mothers.
dad.
My dad. Uh, we adopted. My parents adopted really late.
Oh yeah.
Two other kids, and so my dad now is more mellow than he was whenever me and my sister were younger.
Oh
And
yeah.
so he like comes to us every once in a while and he's like, I'm so sorry, I was such a bad dad. And we're both like, you weren't a bad dad to us. Like you were a very good father. But because he is like spending more personal time with them than he did with us
Yeah,
because he
yeah.
was doing more stuff back then and he's doing less now,
Oh yeah.
he like feels like he did a bad job. And we're like, you did fine.
Oh.
Like you did great. Uh which it's kind of cute to see, especially because back in the day, just the older you get, the more mellow you get. So whenever he was
Yeah.
younger, he was like much more fire and brimstone on certain things, and so now that he's more mellow, he's like,
Mm.
"I'm sorry, I was like that." It's like you're fine. The only thing I would have had him do more is that whenever we were playing board games and we needed one more person, I just wish he would have played the board game instead of saying that was lame. That was
Oh.
always the thing. We'd be like playing Clue, and we were like, let's have one more person, then we can play Clue properly. And he's like, I refuse to play Clue. It's like, oh come on, man, you can do it. Awesome.
Man.
Well, great talking with you.
Same here, man.
And we
Right back
need
at
to
you.
reconnect, and I'll probably talk to you and Jin and some other people in the future too to try and create that platform because y'all actually have
Awesome.
experience
Yeah.
outside of this that I'm gonna need. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need reference points that I don't have the reference point for how artists would actually like it set up.
Yeah. Sure thing, man. That sounds awesome.
All
All
right,
the best to you with it as well.
thank you.